Hello everybody, this is the iFan channel here, and it is quite a sunny day, and I woke up at around 6:20 despite the fact I slept at 2 in the morning and arrived at this hotel Airbnb at midnight. And as you can see, it is now 7 o'clock in the morning. Yes, it is crazy. I did not really sleep that much. That is due to the fact this apartment does have terrible soundproofing. Yes, I did close the windows, but when I woke up, some of the windows were not closed. This window was sort of closed, but it was not like locked. But guess what? The other bedroom and the restrooms windows were not shut, and therefore I could hear a lot of noise. But even when I closed all of these windows up like several minutes ago, they were still noisy. I could still hear the traffic. But luckily now though, it's quite quiet. If I'm actually going to go outside, meet my family for a bit, and then over the next several days, I'm in Ho Chi Minh City. I'm actually going to go around Ho Chi Minh City and maybe even go to another city in Vietnam, such as Can Tho, Vung Tau, Mui Ne or something. Or, I don't even know. Okay guys, I'm actually going to go out of this hotel and probably going to get some food. And due to the fact I'm actually going to combine several days in this whole video, this video might end up being 1 or 2 hours long. Just a disclaimer. But timestamps will be included, so stay tuned. I just walked to the supermarket across the street to get some water. As you can see, Aquafina, but in reality, walkability here is absolute hell. It is extremely hard to cross the road, if not impossible. It's quite deadly, in fact. In fact, for the first round, not only did I have to take a taxi, actually one of these Grab taxis, which is similar to Uber, but actually in either motorcycle or car form, I also had to pay around 25,000 dong, which is about $1. Yes, $1 just to cross the road. And then after buying the water crate, I did have to take 15 to 20 minutes just to walk across the street to the hotel, just because there's this constant stream of motorcyclists and vehicles without really any stoplight or anything. In fact, walkability is absolutely disastrous. I'm actually going to get some breakfast, maybe use Grab, and then I'm gonna see you guys soon. As you can see, there's actually a constant stream of motorcyclists and vehicles. That's why it's so hard to cross the road, despite the fact this is where the supermarket is. And as you can see, the hotel is actually located in Thu Dau Mot. There is actually a sign which says, "Thank you for visiting Thu Dau Mot." I'm actually going to take my father's car now. So I'm gonna see you guys when I'm at his house. Okay guys, as you can see, I'm currently at the restaurant now, and this is actually the Volvo my parents drive. Yes, they do drive a Volvo, despite the fact Volvos are quite rare in Vietnam. Even in the US, they're not as common as the big 3 German brands. And over here is actually the restaurant. As you can see, I actually bought some pho. So I'm going to go in and show you guys the pho, what it looks like. As you can see, this is what the pho looks like. After eating some lunch, I finally made it to my uncle and aunt's house. They're around 70 years old. As you can see, this is what their house looks like. They're actually in my mother's side and not in my father's side. Okay guys, as you can see, this is what their house looks like. I'm sorry I'm not able to show their faces, but as you can see, I think this might be their bed, but I'm not sure. As you can see, like many beds in Vietnam tend to be like table, but I don't really think it's comfortable to sleep unless if you're really used to it. And over here is actually the kitchen. As you can see, it's quite nice, but not really as modern as many American kitchens, but still quite okay by Vietnamese standards. And as you can see, this is the back and the restroom here. I'm not sure what this is. My parents decided to take my uncles and aunts to this theme park, which is Dai Nam though, which is quite similar to Six Flags or like Disney World, Legoland or Universal Studios. As you can see, this is what the park looks like. And I think we're going to take the shuttle though. I just entered the theme park already, and as you can see, I do believe this is a cave, but I'm not really sure. But I've been to this park as a child because I lived here when I was really young, before moving to the US. From what I found out, this is actually a maze, as you can see, the long then great maze. I'm actually going to buy the tickets and then actually go in. This is what this is like in there, but I'm not sure if I could record. I just got into the maze, and as you can see, it's extremely dark in here. But I do think it is shaped like a mythical creature, as you can see. I'm actually using my flashlight on my iPhone to actually project some of the light here. As you can see, it does look quite spooky in here, by the way. So I think I might go in for a bit more. As you can see, arrows help denote the direction you'll be going. It is extremely dark. I might want to go out before really anything happens there. But as you can see, oh! I'm currently at the temple now of the park. As you can see, it is quite nicely decorated with all the ornaments and details, just like many European castles, but in a different way. As you can see, I think these are dragons though, I'm not sure. And there are also very cool palm trees as well around here. So now I'm just gonna check it. As you can see, I'm currently at the temple. I'm not sure if I have to be quiet or not. And as you can see, this is Ho Chi Minh. And yeah, this is what the temple looks like. It's quite cool. But I think this might act as both a Buddhist pagoda as well as a folk temple. But I'm not really sure though. As you can see, I think this might be a folk religion. And over there might be Buddha. Now I actually arrived to another of my uncles and aunts' houses. As you can see, my cousin actually does run a business. As you can see, the company. These people are also in their late 60s as well. They're a bit younger than the other ones I visited prior. But as you can see, this is actually what the house looks like. This house was built several years ago, maybe about 8 or 9 years ago. As you can see, this is actually the restroom. Yeah. Basically, like, my family will be amongst the wealthier people in Vietnam. And finally, before coming to Cu Chi Tunnel, I'm actually going to meet my parents' house. As you can see, I don't currently live in the house, as I live in Cambridge, Mass. As you can see, these are my parents' dog, and this is what the house looks like. As you can see, with a, I think a fake dog. And as you can see, their house is actually much fancier than the other people's house. As you can see, yeah. Oh! I'm sorry, there's actually a tripping hazard, but I think this is one of the clinics they own. And in here, I believe, is actually a medical clinic. As you can see, they're doctors, by the way. And yeah, this is actually the patient waiting room. So you have a full-on clinic. And yeah, from what I heard, they do make a ton of money in Vietnam, and that's why they could afford a Volvo as well as the C-Class, the Benz. And over here is the garden, as you can see, with a bunch of flowers and stuff. It's quite nice. It's basically an outdoor greenhouse garden. And this is actually the door to the house. Here's the kitchen, and if you were to go upstairs, it includes some of the bedrooms and stuff. Yes, I know there's some tripping hazards. I haven't checked. But here you go. As you can see, it actually includes some props up there, as well as I think maybe some bedrooms. As you can see, these are some of the bedrooms. And I don't know what the third floor is, but why not? I'm just going to take a look. And then after this, I'm thinking I'm going to Cu Chi Tunnel with my parents. Yeah. Unfortunately, I haven't really lived in a house for a long time. In fact, I never really lived in this house at all. I moved to the US at quite a young age and was raised by several relatives. until living in my studio in Cambridge several years ago. So as you can see, and over there are actually like my grandparents' altars. They died like many years ago. In fact, none of them are currently alive. And one of them actually died during the 60s. Yes, at a really young age of 40. I'm now on my way to Cu Chi Tunnel, and as you can see, basically my grandparents are extremely old. My father's parents were born in the 1910s and my mother's parents were born in the 1920s, and both my parents are amongst the very last children in the family. Okay guys, I'm actually on the way to Cu Chi Tunnel, and despite the fact it is actually only like around 25 miles, it actually takes 15 minutes. Because not only because of the traffic, but because of the slow speed limits on motorways. Yes, that's correct. As you can see now, I've just entered the farmland, and it starts to get decidedly rural on the way to Cu Chi Tunnel. After about an hour of driving, I finally arrived at the Cu Chi. As you can see, this is actually the gate to the tunnels. But before entering the tunnels, you're actually greeted to the memorial complex. As you can see, this is actually the memorial complex over here, with some nice garden walk. And as you can see, this is actually the temple of Pagoda over there. And there are actually some lion sculptures around. I'm not sure if these are lion. They're kind of a bit far, but as you can see, it is quite a nice garden here, kind of like any real botanical garden in the US or in Europe. And it kind of reminds me of the Berlin Zoo I went last summer. As you can see over there are actually some lily pads, just like I show you in Croatia. And as you can see, this is basically indistinguishable from many Japanese pagodas. Now, if you're Vietnamese, you could help translate this for the English viewers, but I do believe this has to do with the wars against colonialism. As you can see, I could tell that is actually against France. As you can see, 1954. But otherwise, there's no English translation, unfortunately, for this. And over here it does talk about the foundation of communism in 1930, I believe so. And when you go to the temple-like building, as you can see, there's actually a statue of Ho Chi Minh, as well as some basically altars and stuff. So you could actually worship Ho Chi Minh, kind of like ancestral worship sort of, but this is on a bigger scale. And over there I believe is actually a bell of some sort. And even though there's really no description of the bell, I do believe this bell is actually used for the temple. And over here, I believe it shows the list of communist comrades who actually died through the years. As you can see, many of them did die like during the 60s, the 70s. Some of them even died like as recent as 10 years ago. As you can see, it actually stretches all the way to that end over there. And if you were to go all the way up there, you could actually see Comrade Lê Đức Thọ, which is actually famous in Vietnam for actually negotiating the reunification between the North and South and for advocating for peace. And he, along with Henry Kissinger, who just died like around a month ago, was actually nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay guys, after several minutes of looking for the entrance to the Cu Chi Tunnel, I finally arrived. As you can see, welcome to the Cu Chi Tunnels. And over there is actually a sightseeing diagram. And in there I believe is actually a shooting range for the guns, as I've heard several gunshots. And these are some tanks used in I believe the Vietnam War. As you can see, the Liberation Army of the South. And as you can see, there's several more tanks, and I do believe this is really the entrance to the tunnel. And if you were to go here, you could actually see this aircraft C-130, which was built by the US and was delivered to Vietnam just in 1971, even though it was built in 1970. And it was used to take part in Operation 9. And It's basically handed over to the Saigon government years later before the fall of Saigon, which is now called Ho Chi Minh City, by the way. As you can see, guys, over the years, there's actually some rust accumulated. As you can see, there's some more rust. And the paint is definitely peeling off, but it's still green, yeah, just like during the war. Over here, guys, is the entrance to the tunnel, as you can see. And there's actually some garden walk over here, some vines, just like at Leonardo da Vinci's garden in Milan, Italy. And as you can see, it does include some wartime artifacts against the Americans. As you can see, here are actually some guns and stuff, rifles. There's several machine guns over there, as well as some more rifles. And these are actually telephones used for the war, as well as radios as well. And it does show some of the Vietnamese people who actually did die and fought for the war. And this is actually a picture of Ho Chi Minh and the Vietnamese flag. As you can see, this is the entrance to the tunnel, and they did warn some rules, like you should not go if you're like old, if you're drunk, if you are afraid of darkness or narrow place. Say if you're like really big, like many average American, then it might not be the best place for you. And if you have like medical condition, especially respiratory medical conditions, because it's going to be deep underground. As you can see, here is actually some forest. Over here are statues of various female guerrilla fighters, as you can see. And I'm actually going to enter the tunnels. I'm not sure if it's a good idea for me to go down the tunnels or if I would like suffocate. Over here is the entrance to one of the tunnels. As you can see, it is extremely narrow. Yeah, but I could still fit. After several steps, I actually did go down to the Cu Chi tunnel. There's actually several like really big steps, as you can see. But this is actually a water well down here. And there are actually some tunnels which still does fit Westerners because it has been enlarged. But originally it only could fit like Vietnamese people. Over here is actually a tunnel ventilation to help ventilate the tunnels. And as you can see, these tunnels are built by the Viet Cong soldiers to actually try to defend themselves against the Americans as a guerrilla tactic. Over here is actually the sniper hole, as you can see, but there is no way I'm gonna fit in. And you can't really see it unless if you uncover all of it. As you can see, this is actually one of the holes for the snipers to defend themselves against the American invaders. As you can see, over here is actually the bamboo trap, as you can see, to try to trap Americans and actually injure them. Yes, the GI soldiers are basically injured in this bamboo trap over here. Over here, guys, is actually the military and health bunker. As you can see, I'm scared it might be a bit dark in here. But over here is one of the tunnels. Oh my goodness, I nearly tripped in. As you can see, yeah, it is extremely tight. And I do have to really duck in to really walk through this thing, which is really inconvenient, but it's quite good for guerrilla warfare. And over here are some doctors performing medical procedures on a wounded soldier. And over here is actually the stairs to go back up. I'm really exhausted after bending myself into the tunnels. Now I just entered the meeting room, as you can see, where Viet Cong officials actually meet together. Here are some statues of Viet Cong officials. After basically getting out of all the tunnels and returning to Thu Dau Mot, as you can see, guys, I'm now at Pho Pasteur. Yes, there is actually the pho with the same name in Boston, Chinatown, as well as Quincy. So I'm actually going to eat and then return to the hotel, and then tomorrow go around Ho Chi Minh. Okay, guys, this is my meal. I'm nearly finished with it. I'm going to see you guys at the hotel. I just got back to my hotel room. I'm actually going to tour around Ho Chi Minh tomorrow, so why not? I'm just going to sleep for the night. I'm quite tired. I only slept like 4 hours, which is crazy. That's after a 30-hour flight, essentially. So I'm quite tired now. I'm going to see you guys tomorrow. Another morning, guys. Since my parents are currently unavailable, I do have to take an Uber, actually a Grab or equivalent card to go to Ho Chi Minh City. But instead, I actually have a friend who hires a Uber equivalent for me. So I'm not sure if it's Grab or something else, but it is definitely a ride-sharing platform. But I don't really know because I did not book. But as you can see, I just found out more information about the Cu Chi tunnels. As you can see, this is actually a whole network. I've only been to like maybe about a few kilometers. In reality, there are actually 75 miles worth of tunnel that is well preserved, which is around 120 kilometers. But the total length is over 250 kilometers, yes, which is over 150 miles. It's quite crazy. But the thing is, like, I'm not able to go to it all. It's extremely deep, as you can see. And also, it was built between 1946 and 1968, which was during the years of the Vietnam War, which was between 1955 and 1975. That was due to the fact there was French occupation between 1945 and 1955. And of course, the Vietnam War between 1954 and 1975. And of course, the Vietnamese did want to defend themselves against French and American occupation, so that's why they have this tunnel as a guerrilla tactic. As you can see, this is actually the Uber. Actually, it is called San SM, XANH-SM, which is actually a taxi service in Vietnam, and many San SMs are actually based on the VinFast VF E34, and you can tell because it's actually blue. And as you can see, I just arrived at Sushi Tay, which is a Japanese restaurant in Ho Chi Minh City. Now, just before I eat, let me show you guys. There are several luxury cars. I've actually seen a Bentayga, several Porsches, several Benzes, Beamers and stuff. It's absolutely crazy. Look at it, in S-Class. This is the new generation of the S-Class. I can't even believe many Vietnamese could actually afford such cars like this, given the fact Vietnam is still a developing country, unlike, say, much of Europe or the US or Canada, where all of these countries are a lot wealthier. In fact, Vietnam's GDP per capita is on par with some of the poorest European countries. And Ho Chi Minh City may be about the same as like Croatia or like Slovenia or something. But yet I still see a lot of luxury cars, which is so damn surprising. Yeah. It's absolutely crazy. Over here there might not be, but let me wait for a few seconds. Yeah, in fact, there's a lot of luxury cars. I do believe this is the Q7. As you can see, this is the Q7, and over there is actually an E-Class. These cars would cost double or even triple that of the US. And in the US, they're considered luxury. Over in Vietnam, I do believe like these cars, just the regular big three German cars, might be viewed just like Bentley and Rolls-Royce in the US, which is absolutely crazy. After about 15 minutes, I finally got my meal. As you can see, it is a sushi as well as a katsu curry, I believe so. And I'm actually going to eat. And due to the fact I carry a ton of money in cash, and I wanted to use much of my cash before leaving Vietnam, that's why I take advantage of eating expensive restaurants for a while. But in reality, I'm not going to use all of my dong. In fact, if I leave Vietnam, I'm actually going to convert some of my dong into AED or Euros for Dubai as well as Rome. And maybe even convert to US dollars as well. I just finished eating, and from what I noticed, there are actually multiple Japanese restaurants around here. As you can see, Maru Kami Udon. There's a Manmaru, which I believe is closed. And there are actually several more, including this as well. Kuru, Krinji, and yeah, I would dub this the Japanese neighborhood in Ho Chi Minh City. Now over there is the Independence Palace, as you can see, and from what I see, this is actually a Bentley. Yes, it's crazy how Vietnamese could afford these cars despite the fact they cost double or even triple the US. It's absolutely insane, given the fact like Rolls-Royce, Bentleys are considered extremely expensive even in the US. where an average American cannot afford. So now why not I'm going to walk to the Independence Palace, but the thing is it's not really as safe to walk in Vietnam as it is in the US or Europe, because I do see a lot of motorcyclists on crosswalks. Yes, I'm not joking. After paying about 65,000 VND, which is a bit less than $3, I finally arrived at the Independence Palace, as you can see. And over there is actually Notre Dame Palace, which is actually named after, you guessed it, Notre Dame of Cambodia. Now here's some information about this palace. This palace was built between 1962 and 1966. The architect is actually Ngo Viet Thu, and this used to be the seating place for the president of South Vietnam, actually called the Republic of Vietnam officially. It was also the site of the fall of Saigon in 1975, and as you can see, this is what the palace looks like. And the official name is actually Dinh Doc Lap, which means D-I-N-H-D-O-C-L-A-P. Let me show you guys the spelling. As you can see, this is the official spelling of the Independence Palace in Vietnamese. Over here, if you could actually see, is actually the old Independence Palace, and this is the Independence Palace in its current form. And it is essentially like the White House in the Republic of Vietnam, but that republic had basically fallen after the end of the war in 1975. Over here is actually the state banquet room, which could hold up to 100 people, and is actually the holding site for an inauguration of Nguyen Van Thieu, who is actually a former president of the Republic in 1967 on Halloween's Day. Basically, the very last dinner in this banquet hall was actually in 1975, just before the fall of Saigon, about 2 months before the fall on 4/30 in 1975. And if you were to go in here, it is actually the conference hall, which holds as much as 500 people. And this is where Nguyen Van Thieu actually resigned as president in 1975, just several days before the fall of Saigon. But if you were to look more closely, you would actually see some communist symbol, as well as the Socialist Republic flag. And I think that is Ho Chi Minh, but I'm not really sure. Even though there's no description of what this room is, I do believe it is a newer conference room, as you can see, with new seats and even speaker sets as well. So I do think this is a more modern conference room than some of the others, but I'm not really sure. As you can see, I actually did get to the second floor, but you cannot use these stairs. Instead, you actually use one of these stairs, yes. The side stairs, rather than the quote-unquote official stairs of the Independence Palace. And over here is actually the reception salon of the Vice President of Vietnam, who was Nguyen Cao Ky between 1967 and 1971. And over here is actually the reception room of the President of the Republic, as you can see, as well as over there, I believe so. And this is where 6 conferences between the President of the Republic of Vietnam and Henry Kissinger were held, as Henry Kissinger did propose the Paris Peace Accords of 1973. The Paris Peace Accords of 1973 was to actually end the Vietnam War and restore peace in the country. Over here is actually the presidential office of Nguyen Van Thieu. And as you can see, he was actually born in 1923 in a village in Ninh Thuan Province, which is in the south central coast. And he basically participated in a coup d'etat against Ngo Dinh Diem, which was the first president of the Republic, I believe so, in 1963. So basically just 3 weeks before the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And he died in Boston in 2001, actually at the Beth Israel Deaconess Center in Longwood Medical Area. From what I heard on the news, he did live in Newton, Mass, which is actually a close suburb of Boston. And I do go to Boston and Newton quite often because they're close to Cambridge. Over here is actually the National Security Council chamber, and it's used to hold meetings between the president, some of his senior advisors, as well as US officials. And over here are some maps which document the war situation in Vietnam during the time up until 1975. And in 1975, with the advance of the Viet Cong forces, President Thieu actually ordered Ngo Quang Trung to evacuate the city of Hue. As you can see, this is what the chamber looks like. And I'm not sure if I go in here what it would be, but I think there are a lot of crowds actually taking a picture of, you guessed it, the outside of the Independence Palace, as you can see. And I do believe this is actually a garden of some sort. Over here is the Ambassador's Chamber, which is where ambassadors of different countries actually meet the Vietnamese government. Specifically, they actually presented their credentials to the president. And one example was in 1975, just after actually before the fall of the Vietnam War, of which Hiroshi Hitomi actually did go into this room, and it was the very last ceremony in this Independence Palace just before the fall of Saigon, 12 days later. If you were to go in here, these are actually some private apartments. As you can see, this is actually some garden of some sort, and some of these are artifacts as well as these. And if you were to go here, you can actually see some bedrooms. As you can see, it says bedroom, and here is another bedroom, and I think these are dining rooms, and I do believe this is another dining room as well. As you can see, these are actually furniture, and many of my relatives do have these furniture still in Vietnam. And actually the bedroom is actually connected with the dining room. As you can see, this is what the bed looks like. Much better than many of the table beds used by many of my relatives. And actually over here is actually the dining room. As you can see, salle à manger. And this is where like many officials ate. And this is another bedroom, just like I showed you. And this, I believe, is a smaller bedroom of the two, but you can see there's actually Western style furniture in there. Over here is actually the office for the vice president. As you can see, Nguyen Cao Ky was the former vice president of the republic. And as you can see, I do think this is his spouse, but I'm not too sure. And over here actually some more seats for the chamber office. And over here is not just an ordinary bedroom, it is actually the bedroom of the president of the republic. As you can see, it is much bigger than the other two, with a bed as well as a television. As you can see, this is what televisions looked like during the 60s. I'm not joking. I just arrived at the 4th floor, and as you can see, this plane is actually the Bell UH-1 plane, and is used as one of the jets in the Vietnam War, as you can see. And over here, I think, is actually a movie theater of some sort. And this is actually a formal dining room, as you can see. In the 2nd floor, you actually see the president and vice president's reception room, but over here is the first lady's reception room. And over here is actually the spouse of Nguyen Van Thieu. There's actually this lady over here. I'm finally down in the basement, and as you can see, this is actually used as the bunker, which was designed by Van Dien, and the construction only took about 3 months, and it was 72.5 meters long, 0.8 to 22.5 meters in width, and a depth about 0.6 to 2.5 meters. So it's quite big. And in this room, however, it is actually used as a command center, which is actually an intelligence coordination center. And as you can see, over here are some maps. And these maps are actually specifically used as an overview of ongoing military operations in the country. As you can see, this is actually the map of the Southern Republic. As you can see, starting from Quang Tri all the way down to Bac Lieu and stuff. And this is actually a map of Laos, as you can see. And down there is actually Cambodia. As you can see, this is actually a map of Saigon, which is actually known as Ho Chi Minh City today, as Saigon was literally named after Ho Chi Minh after the fall of Saigon in 1975. That's the official name of Saigon, but many locals still call it Saigon to this day. And if you were to see over here is actually a map of the northern part of Vietnam, as you can see. And I do believe around here is actually Hanoi. And Son Tay is where one of the famous leaders of Vietnam were born in. And later in the trip, I'm actually going to go to Ha Long, which is actually around this area, if I do have extra time. And it does stretch as far as Ha Thien and these provinces. And the rest of Vietnam is actually this. And if you were to go to several more rooms, as you can see, this is actually the communication center used for radio broadcasts and stuff, as it could accommodate up to 41 staff, including telegraphists, telex clerks, and mobile radio operators. And as you can see, this is the communications room. And if you were to go here, it would show some telephones and stuff. This is actually the message correction center. And going a bit further, this is actually another room. This is the second room. As you can see, the switchboard, and in here is actually the radio receiver, and this is the high frequency communications room. So you actually see the theme. The bunker is actually used for like radio communications and many important military operations, as you can see. And this is actually the telex room, and these machines are quite old, and these appear to be typewriters because the 1970s were before the era of computers, which was during the mid-70s. And this is actually the radio transmitter room. I'm not going to show you every room, but over here is actually the exit. So why not? I'm going to exit the palace and show you guys other parts of the Independence Palace. Finally, before we go, this is another of the president's bedrooms, as you can see down the bunker. And this is the very final room of this palace, the president's war room, actually used for the president to basically talk about the war in Vietnam. As you can see, here are several maps of South Vietnam, and over here is actually Southeast Asia, the entire thing, including Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Myanmar, or known as Burma at the time, Malaysia and Indonesia, but it does not include the Philippines, nor Brunei or New Guinea. I just left the bunker and I'm on my way out of the Independence Palace, and as you can see, this W110 Benz, as you can see, is actually used as the President's car, one of Van Thieu's cars, and it was put on display 20 years after the liberation of Saigon on the 30th of April in 1995. And over here is not just an ordinary Jeep for the war, it is actually one of the special Jeeps used by President Dung Van Minh for the fall of Saigon. And over here is actually a typical kitchen in a palace. As you can see, it is quite old by today's standards, but this is what the kitchen looks like. I just left the Independence Palace, and as you can see, this is Cafe 34, which is actually named after the day that Saigon actually fell on 4/30, 1975. Kind of a coincidence. And guess what? Exactly 30 years earlier, Adolf Hitler died as well on April the 30th in 1945. As you can see, there's not just one Cafe 34. This is the second one within several hundred meters. As you can see, this is the other one I just showed you. And as you can see, there are actually more Vietnamese people than foreigners. I finally entered the exhibition for the Notre Dame Palace, the former Notre Dame Palace, which was built in 1868, but then demolished during the 1960s. As you can see, this is what the original palace looked like before it turned into this, which is actually in its present form, the Independence Palace. And you might guess it was named after one of the kings of Cambodia, because Notre Dame Sihanouk is one of the famous kings who died around 10 years ago, a bit more than 10 years ago. And as you can see, this is where basically the French colonial powers had their government seats at, which is actually this. And the republic down in the south of Vietnam was actually called Cochin China. And in 1954, during the beginning of the war, as you can see, this is Ngo Dinh Diem, who was the former president before the coup d'etat. And this is actually what the exhibition looks like. As you can see, it started with the colonial powers and was built by, I believe, Europeans, because it kind of looks like any European palace at the time. As you can see, the architect of this palace, the original Notre Dame Palace, is Antoine Hermite, and this palace was built in a neo-Baroque style. As you can see, it looks similar to many Baroque palaces around Europe, sort of similar. And the construction of this palace actually costed 4.7 million francs, which is equivalent to a quarter of the budget of the colonial public works. Yes, I'm not sure if converted to today's money how much it costs, but it is quite a lot. And some of these people are actually ancient Vietnamese figures from the French colonial era. I'm sorry if I call them ancient, but they're quite ancient compared to today's Vietnamese people. As you can see, this is Nguyen An Minh, and over here is Tung Vinh Ki, and over there is actually Do Hu Phun. Actually, he does have facial hair, as you can see. Not many Vietnamese today actually have facial hair. And this is Thun Van Ben, yeah. Yes, his first name is actually Ben, but quite different from the Ben in many English-speaking people. And this is Sung Nguyen An. Unfortunately, they do not have an image. And over here is Phan Chau Trinh, who also has facial hair, as you can see. So quite different from many modern day Vietnamese who typically love shaving. Kind of like many Chinese and Japanese and Korean at the time, such as I think Sun Yat-sen. And fun fact, Saigon actually became the capital of French Cochin China in 1867, which is essentially a part of Indochina, which comprises of Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos. If you were to go upstairs, you actually find out Ngo Dinh Diem's family. As you can see, his parents are on the top. Yes, they're really old and they did have a ton of children. Tran Lis Wan is actually not one of the children. It is actually the spouse of Ngo Dinh Diem. And as you can see, the last child was born nearly 60 years after the father was born. As you can see, 57 years to be exact. And yes, Ngo Dinh Diem is actually part of the Can Lao Party. And it basically ruled Vietnam during the early days of the Vietnam War. In English, it will be known as the Personalist Labor Revolutionary Party. And just as expected, even though South Vietnam did align with the US, it is not really that democratic. In fact, it is actually a corrupt regime, just like much of Philippines and Indonesia during the time. Now, one of the more famous siblings of Ngo Dinh Diem is actually Ngo Dinh Nhu, which is actually the younger sibling of Ngo Dinh Diem, and he is actually an admirer of the Nazis. They are basically a quasi-fascist, according to many articles. So basically, the Republic of Vietnam, despite being aligned with the US, don't even think it's democratic at all. In fact, just think of it more like a corrupt regime, kind of like the ROK during the time, basically South Korea, which is currently a democracy, one of the best countries to live compared to its communist north. And as you can see, after the bombing of the old palace, the new palace is being built, just like I said, which now looks like this, just like you see outside. And over here is the year 1963. As you can see, this is the same year Kennedy and the two Ngo's are actually assassinated. Yes, basically the two Ngo's were assassinated just weeks before Kennedy's assassination. And the Ngo's assassination were actually perpetrated by the CIA as a coup d'etat against the party, with Nguyen Van Thieu actually participating in the assassination. And as you can see, I'm not sure what this room is, but I think this is actually a typical restaurant of Saigon. As you can see, many middle-class Saigonese could actually afford motorcycles, cars, cameras, just like what a typical American and Western European could afford, and maybe even certain Eastern Europeans, because the Soviet Union and other Comecon countries actually did develop technology as well. I just left the Independence Palace altogether and walked several minutes north to actually find out the Notre Dame Basilica of Saigon, as well as the Saigon Central Post Office. As you can see, I thought it was a train station because it sort of looks similar to many La Gare in throughout the world, but it is actually a post office. As you can see, this was built between 1886 and 1891, and this, however, was built between 1863 and 1880, and used the Notre Dame Cathedral name since 1959. And the cathedral does go up 190 feet or 58 meters, as you can see. The church is actually officially called the Cathedral Basilica of Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception. And the church is actually built in a Romanesque style, just like many churches throughout Europe I visited over the past several years. I'm currently inside of the post office, and as you can see, there's some souvenir shops around, as well as what I do believe is actually a post office. Yes, this post office, despite the fact it is historic, is still being used as a post office to this day, as you can see. And in this post office, they do sell jewelry as well as other souvenirs, and it is being used as a tour desk as well. And if you were to go in here, as you can see, that is actually a post office with Ho Chi Minh's picture, and you could see the time as well. And according to time, it's around 3:25. So why not? I'm gonna hop to the cathedral, but I'm not sure if the cathedral is open, given the fact there's some construction, which I do actually believe is some renovation. So I'm sorry if I might not be able to show you guys the inside of the cathedral, but if I can, then it will be quite good. As you can see, this church has been under renovation for at least 6 or 7 years. However, due to supply chain issues from the pandemic, therefore construction is actually delayed until about 2027. Yes, by 2027, which is in 3 more years, this church would finish renovating. Now it's about 60% completed with renovation. Kind of like the Zagreb Cathedral in Croatia, which was struck by an earthquake, of which 2 of its spires, or at least one of them, were broken 4 years ago, and therefore I was not able to go. And at the time I was in Croatia, I did have bad laryngitis as well. Unfortunately, I cannot go to the cathedral, and as I heard from the tour lady, it only opens on the weekends. And as you can see, this is actually book row in Ho Chi Minh City. As you can see, Happy New Year. They're actually celebrating the New Year here, and you can see some books as well. Basically a whole row of books. And as you can see, you actually do have some children's books, as well as some more adult books. And they even sell like some souvenirs as well. As you can see, postcards and stuff, and big albums. And I do believe this is one of the older buses, but it is actually more of a replica than a real bus. And here are some more books, as well as toys as well. This is quite a big street, and also it is covered with trees, so it's absolutely relaxing rather than being in the scorching sun, especially with this heat. It is actually nearly 35 degrees. As you can see, it is extremely hot. Yeah, basically 33 degrees. As you can see, if you were to walk past the bookstore, you would actually get to mPlaza Saigon, which includes several restaurants, several Japanese, Chinese and Korean restaurants. There's actually a Cantonese buffet, I believe so, which serves dim sum, and this is actually a Starbucks, by the way. And if you were to go all the way up there, it is actually a Korean BBQ place. And due to the fact I wanted to avoid laryngitis, just like in the Europe trip where I did contract laryngitis, unfortunately I did buy myself some more drinks. Yes, in fact I bought a whole crate of drink just for like 5-6 days. So basically 24 aquafina. If you were to see yesterday, I did buy some drinks to actually help prevent me from getting any laryngitis during the trip. And just outside the church is actually Ho Chi Minh. As you can see, this is throughout his life up until his death in 1969. As you can see, this is like near the time he's dead. And he basically died in 1969. As you can see, it honors Ho Chi Minh over here. All the signs are in Vietnamese, so there's actually no English translation, unfortunately, but it does talk about Ho Chi Minh. And coincidentally enough, this is actually near a gifted secondary school. As you can see over here, it does talk about Vietnam. It essentially talks about how Vietnam was enslaved by the French colonials, as well as the American government during the war. I'm on the way to the Opera House of Vietnam, and as you can see, this is actually the Vincom Center, which is one of the biggest malls, if not the biggest in the whole country, and definitely for sure the biggest in Ho Chi Minh City. So why not? I'm actually going to go to the mall, because there's actually more than 250 shops, including several upscale ones. Remember in Berlin where you actually do get the Sony Center with a Sony store inside? Now this is just a Sony store. As you can see, it does include several electronics such as headphones. As you can see, I just recently reviewed the WHC8720N. And as you can see some cameras. And I do believe you could see Sony Xperia phones, which are not really that popular in the US. As MKBHD and Mr. Who's the Boss explained. As you can see, this is the Sony Xperia 1.4 though. And this is over here is the Sony Xperia 10, which is actually one of their more budget phones, with Sony Xperia 5 being the mid-range and a Sony Xperia 1 being the flagship. And over here are some speakers as well as some entertainment sets, because Sony does make televisions as well as loudspeakers. I just made it to the Opera House, and as you can see, it is actually closed, unfortunately. I do believe there's some renovation. As you can see, I'm actually gonna run up to show you guys that there's renovation at the Opera House, unfortunately. But this is actually built in the Beaux-Arts style by French colonialists between 1898, and it actually opened in 1900. As you can see, unfortunately, there's some renovation going on with some tools over there. And I do believe that is actually an older Mustang. As you can see, I'm not sure what it is, but it's quite cool, especially in Vietnam, where you rarely see American muscle cars of any sort. But I do see some American muscle cars as well as big pickup trucks in Europe. And if you were to see from here, it is actually a closer view of the Saigon Opera House. You would see the details more clearly. And over here, I believe, is actually a park. If you were to walk a bit more, it is actually the Nguyen Hue Music Fountain. I just arrived at Cholon, and as you can see, the traffic is quite chaotic. It is rush hour at the moment, I do believe so, in Vietnam. And as you can see, it's entirely motorcycle with very few cars, unlike the other district near the Independence Palace. And over here is the Thien Temple, which is officially called the Thuy Tan Guild Hall. This temple is based on the Chinese goddess of the sea, Mazu, and it was completed in 1760. And it served the ethnic Hoa community in Cholon. And fun fact, Thien Hao is actually a direct translation of Tien Hu in Chinese. I'm actually going to go to the temple tomorrow. Unfortunately, it actually did close. As you can see, the hours, it says 6 o'clock to around 17:30. It is now past 17:30, unfortunately. And as you can see, the traffic is absolutely heavy. As you can see, it is now past 17:30. So why not just go around Cholon, because I think there's going to be a market somewhere. I finally arrived at a restaurant, and as you can see, it is actually the Ai Hui 2 restaurant, I believe so. And it is actually a Chinese restaurant, because Cholon is actually Vietnam's Chinatown, actually Saigon specifically. But I've been walking around this area for some time now, maybe about 40 minutes already, and let me tell you, it is absolute hell to walk through. As you can see, it is full of motorcycles. Many motorcycles do not stop for pedestrians. They might even hit you, even with the walker sign on. As you can see, they still like continue going. I just don't really understand, and I don't really feel like it's really safe for pedestrians, and it's absolutely hard, because not only that, they also block basically much of the crosswalk using motorcycles or tables or something. So it's essentially quite hard to walk through, but why not? I'm just gonna eat some food. Okay guys, I just got the food. As you can see, this is actually the stir-fried rice with beef, and this is actually roasted pigeon. I'm actually going to use my water to drink, and if I need extra water, why not I just pay about $1, which is actually about 20,000 VND. So why not? I'm gonna see you guys later. Okay guys, I just returned from the restaurant. It is now the next day. As you can see, it is now around 10:15 in the morning, and it is extremely sunny. And here's the time, 10:15. As you can see, this is what the traffic looks like in Thu Dau Mot. But because for the next 3 days I'm actually going to be hanging out in Ho Chi Minh City, I actually decided to cancel the hotel reservation and actually switch the hotel in Ho Chi Minh City, even if it meant a temporary loss of money. Because from what I heard, like the taxis from here to Ho Chi Minh is quite expensive. So instead of riding a taxi, why not? I'm just going to have fun in Ho Chi Minh, and then I might go to the airport in the next 3 days to go to Hanoi, and then after Hanoi I'm going to go to Dubai, and then after Dubai, on the way home to Massachusetts, I'm going to go to Rome in Italy. Even though I swore not to go to relatives' house and instead to go to Ho Chi Minh City, I'm actually invited to this cousin's house. This cousin is actually 30 years older than me, so she's born around 1970, and as you can see, this house is quite fancy though. Her child is around like 30 years old, which is around 10 years older than me, or nearly 10 years older than me, actually 8 or 9 years though. So basically in his early 30s, and as you can see, this is what the house looks like. It is quite fancy, even though her child did not move to the US to study, with all the furniture and stuff. And as you can see, I'm trying my best not to show people's faces. And as you can see, this is actually a dining room and a kitchen. As you can see, I think these are their cars. They do have several Toyotas. Just like in Vietnam, it's quite popular. And this is what their upstairs looks like. It is actually quite fancy, even compared to my parents' house. But I do think my parents are more affluent, given the fact they are actually presidents of the hospital. But this is what the upstairs looks like. And as you can see, their house does have 3 stories. And yeah, the 3rd floor is like this. I don't know what room it is, but I think it might be some sort of attic or something. As you can see, this is the roof here. As you can see, here are some of the ancestors. I'm not sure who they are, but they're not really related to me by any means. But it does show a typical upper-class Vietnamese house. And here's another room, as you can see. I'm not going to go in because there's actually a person, and I do not want to show faces. And over here is actually the downstairs. It is quite big, even compared to my parents' house, and my parents' house is quite fancy already. So when I'm actually going to go out, show you guys the garden, and then go to Ho Chi Minh. And before I say goodbye and go to Ho Chi Minh City, I'm just going to show you the garden, which kind of looks similar to my parents' garden, as you can see, with some flowers and stuff. This is common amongst Vietnamese families, and I do hear that my uncles and aunts actually live in the house. They're in their late 70s, by the way. This is actually older than the 2 I visited. One of them did die like around 1985, but in reality, this is the garden here, and a motorcycle, just like many Vietnamese households. So when I'm going to Ho Chi Minh City, after leaving one of my older cousins' houses, I decided to actually go here. Actually, my chauffeur actually invited me to this pagoda. As you can see, this is actually a Buddhist pagoda. There's actually a difference between Buddha and folk. As my parents explained, basically folk religion they call as temple, and for Buddhism they call as pagoda. I thought that Buddhism calls it temple, by the way. But as you can see, there's several statues, as well as some artwork and fresco. So it's quite nice here, just like many European palaces. Now this temple is actually called the Bulang Pagoda. As you can see, there are actually architectural elements from Myanmar, Thailand, India, and of course Vietnam. And this is where the Theravada Buddhism branch is. And it is the most beautiful temple in all of Vietnam, as you can see. It is actually a Buddhist pagoda, by the way. And as you can see, it kind of looks like some Siamese or Burmese building. It kind of reminds me of something in Naypyidaw, because I do watch Top Gear quite often, and therefore I do know the capital of Myanmar is actually Naypyidaw rather than Yangon, which is the older capital. As you can see, I'm actually going to walk to Buddha now. As you can see, this is the statue of Gautama Buddha. You could actually pray to him, but I'm not going to, because I'm actually irreligious, as you can see. I'm sorry, I might have to be quiet here. As you can see, here's actually a statue of a monk. I'm not really sure if it's the monk or the Dalai Lama, but as you can see, this is actually the back of this pagoda. And here's some more rooms. As you can see, it is absolutely breathtaking, and I do believe it's quite underrated, because according to some articles, it is not that well visited, and it's quite in the outskirts of Ho Chi Minh City. And here is actually the other side. As you can see, this is where Theravada Buddhism comes into play, because this, yes, you could actually see this, which does remind you of many Thai as well as Burmese buildings. And let me show you one example. As you can see, just compare this to this. As you can see in this building, it does say Bulong Vijalaya. And over here are actually Thai characters, I believe so. Even though Thai, Cambodian, and Laos are quite similar in terms of their language alphabets. But I do think it's Thai, because I actually used Google Lens and actually found out it is between Vietnam and Thailand. And if you were to walk more, you could actually see some of the beautiful frescoes, kind of like in many European palaces, as well as other Asian temples as well, as you can see. And I'm not sure if I could go into this building, but I could try though, yeah. It says, please show your respect by dressing politely at solemn place. So I think I might be able to go in, but let's see. Unfortunately, you have to be quiet in this temple, as you can see. And over here is actually the Bodhi tree, B-O-D-H-I, for the temple. And as you can see, over there is actually Buddha, I believe so. And I do not think they allow shoes here. And here's some incense being burnt, as you can see. So I'm actually going to take my shoes away and actually going to climb up here. As you can see, this is actually a guy praying. And here it is. With some nice sculptures, as you can see here, as well as over there, but you might not be able to see well. But I'm not sure if I could go up. Now, due to the fact this monolith actually reopens at around 13:30, which is actually 1:30 p.m. and now it is 1:35, I'm actually going to return to this place. I'm sorry, it was closed. And over here is actually, I think, a cat or something, as you can see. And here's another part of the temple I went earlier. So why not, I'm actually going to go up here. And according to the this sheet, it does say it's a Gautama Grand Stupa, so why not? I'm actually going to go in. As you can see, there are many shoes here, so I do believe it's open. And why not, I'm actually going to show you guys the inside, which does look like many Theravada temples, as I'll show you guys. This is one example of a Theravada temple in Bangladesh. As you can see, this is finally open, the Grand Stupa. I'm actually going to enter. I'm sorry if I do have to be quiet. They might not allow any noise at all, just like many European churches I visited over the years. And as you can see, this is what the interior looks like. Fit with a lot of marbles as well as quality wood. And I'm actually going to go upstairs now. As you can see, this is actually the outside. And why not, I'm going to go upstairs and show you guys what the upstairs look like. But did you see people standing outside? So it might be the outside view. And here you go, guys. This is what the outside looks like. As you can see, it is quite nice outside and breathtaking, and you can even see Ho Chi Minh skyline as well, sort of, but it's actually being blocked by the trees. And you see other design ornaments as well around here. Basically looks like many European palaces frescoes, and I don't know what that is, but I think that is probably a statue of Buddha. And I do see a guy praying, the same guy as in the Bodhi. And over there, yeah, this is what the third floor looks like. Also with the statue of Buddha and with people praying. I'm sorry, I just had to be quiet. And as you can see, there is a reason why this Buddhist temple is actually one of the most beautiful, if not the most, in all of Vietnam. It is actually quite stunning to see. And there are many different examples in other Southeast Asian countries, including Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos and stuff. But in reality, Vietnam, just like China, Japan and Korea, and unlike these other countries, instead they actually practice Mahayana Buddhism rather than Theravada Buddhism. Theravada Buddhism is famous in Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, Myanmar, India and Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan and these countries. I just left the temple and I'm currently on the way to the hotel. As you can see, this is actually in Saigon, new town. And over there, if you can't see well, it's actually landmark 81, which is the tallest building in all of Vietnam. Yes, it was built 5 years ago in 2018 and is owned by Vin Homes. As you can see, yeah, I'm sorry the trees are obstructing the view, but here's actually a better view later. As you can see, this is what the landmark looks like, and it is quite striking. It's essentially the modern city of Ho Chi Minh. This building would be the 17th tallest in the world, and it's about 460 meters or around 1,500 feet. By comparison, I do believe the Empire State Building is actually shorter. Okay guys, I just checked into the hotel, and as you can see, it is actually the Liberty Central Hotel, Saigon Center, and as you can see, I'm actually going to try to get in, but I was denied. Okay guys, I finally got a new key, actually replacement key, and over here is actually the room. As you can see, it is just like any Western hotel I've slept throughout Europe as well as the US. As you can see with the TV and stuff, and unfortunately, due to the fact I actually booked last minute, therefore I do get 2 twin beds rather than a queen bed, which is kind of a shame though, given the fact I'm the only person sleeping. And as you can see, this is actually the restroom. I'm actually going to turn on the electricity for a bit. As you can see, I turn on with another key in there, and this is what the restroom looks like. Just like any European restroom or American restroom. And luckily there is actually a partition, unlike in Switzerland. Yes, remember in Zurich, I actually slept at the B&B hotel near the airport, and it did not have a partition, kind of like many Vietnamese showers. As you can see, this is the toilet and a sink. It just looks like any European hotel, and it is quite nice. So I'm actually going to go out and go around. I just left the hotel now, and I'm currently at the Binh Duong market. As you can see, this is one of the famous markets in the Cholon neighborhood, and I'm actually going to go in to see what's in there, and maybe who knows if I could buy some food or not. I'm not sure if the food is really safe in this market or if I would get stomach ache though. But as you can see, these are clothing. They actually do have some fabrics here for sale, mainly for like Tet, which is basically the Vietnamese equivalent of Lunar New Year. And in here they sell like some bags and stuff, luggages. And I'm not sure about upstairs, but why not? Let's go upstairs there, yeah, to see what it's like. I'm not sure if I would even buy anything here, because I have enough stuff. As you can see, I think this is actually a children's clothing store, and they do sell like the long Vietnamese dress for children as well, not just for adults but also for children, maybe to prepare for Tet, which is actually the Vietnamese New Year. As you can see, this is the second floor. Unfortunately, I'm not sure where the food is, even though it says it's a market. And outside of the Binh Duong market, it does include a shrine of this guy, Quach Dam Thong Hiep. I don't even know who he is, but it might be some famous person in Vietnam. And as you can see, there's actually some incense for people to pray to him. And I'm not sure if the restrooms here are clean. As you can see, it does have WC, which does mean restroom. And why not? I'm just gonna go around. And as you can see, despite the fact the market is a bit shabby, it does sell a lot of things, and I might buy some souvenirs here, but I'm not really sure. Okay guys, I finally found the farmer's market. As you can see, it does sell some food, and if you were to go a bit more, who knows what I'm able to find, but I could find some fruits and vegetables. As you can see over there, I know it's really cramped. These roads are really cramped, and it is kind of hard to walk, but as you can see, it does sell like peanuts and stuff, I believe so, and I do believe some seafood as well. As you can see, they do sell dry fish. I'm not sure if eating here is like sanitary, especially given that I'm not really familiar with the food, and I mainly live in the West as well, so I'm scared I might get like diarrhea. But I could see, as you can see, dried shrimp here. Like they sell like I believe 920,000 Vietnamese dong, so I'm not sure. As you can see, the Binh Duong market was open around 1930, and it was renovated several times. Even though it was renovated several times, It still kind of looks a bit shabby, but the guy named Phak Nam was actually one of the funders for this project. Yes, the guy I showed you, who's like basically altar, is actually in the back of this plaza. As you can see, there's actually a lot of traffic. It is rush hour traffic and the streets are absolutely jammed, as you can see, with motorcycles. And yesterday I could not actually go into the Thien Dao temple because it's closed. Today it is actually open because I went early enough, and here is what the temple looks like, as you can see, just for recap. And this is the interior of the Thien Dao temple. As you can see, you can check yesterday's video for more information. And I'm thinking I might need to wear a mask because there's a lot of smoke, and second-hand smoke does cause lung cancer, just like first-hand smoke. As you can see, there's some folk leaders and stuff, and as you can see, here's some more incense. Yes, yeah, so I think this is about as toxic as maybe a bunch of motorcycles, and that's the reason why many motorcyclists do wear masks even before the pandemic. Over here is the Thien Dao temple over the years. As you can see, in 1890, during colonialism, in 1928, just the year before the Great Depression, and I think this is maybe in the more recent years, as you can see, a color image. And I think this is actually 1908, one of the really first color images. It's crazy. It's actually in District 5, as you can see, Quan 5. And if you were to go some bit more, you can see some more artifacts. Yeah, I'm sorry, there's a ton of smoke around, and it does show some of the pictures of the temple, but I don't really know what it is, to be honest, because I moved to the West at quite a young age. So therefore, I don't know much Vietnamese as much as, like, say, my relatives who might have lived here for much longer and who might still be living in the country now. As you can see, this is actually Ho Chi Minh. Yeah, I'm sorry, there's really no English like translation, unfortunately, here, unlike many European museums, which does have an English translation. But here's some more incense to actually honor the god, as you can see, and goddess. As you can see, I'm not sure, but I do think this is Mazu, which is the goddess of the sea, as you can see. And this temple basically worships the goddess of the sea, whose name is Mazu. And there is actually a temple with a similar name, Tien Hao Temple, in Los Angeles, California, all the way in the US. As you can see, this is what the temple looks like, with a ton of incense being burnt. And I think this might be Mazu, but I'm not sure as well. But there's several themes. The bad thing is, like, none of the names, the labels, so I don't really know what things are. But as you can see, I'm actually going to show you guys this part, which is also another worshiping room. And I'm sorry, there might be tripping hazards. I just left the temple, and as you can see, I'm actually at the goidong.com, which is actually the Vietnamese equivalent of Best Buy, Circuit City, and Media Market. As you can see, I'm actually going to go into the store to look for some technology. As you can see, there's actually Oppo Find N3 series, which is never sold in the US, as well as Xiaomi phones. Many Xiaomi and Huawei phones are actually sold in Europe, and this is Vivo, Realme. Many of these phones you see over here are actually sold in Europe, and this is quite small compared to Best Buy, but it still sells a lot of the electronics, like laptops and stuff, MacBooks. And if you were to go here, then you get to see some more phones. And over there is actually Samsung, and I think over there is actually the iPhone. And as you can see, there are actually new Galaxy A devices which were released just this year, the A05, the A15 and the A25. These phones will come to the US in the coming months. After hanging out at the electronics store for a while, I'm actually currently at the Ben Thanh market near the hotel, and as you can see, a new metro station is going to be open. It is actually open in Hanoi around 2.5 years ago, nearly 2.5 years ago. As you can see, this is what the Ben Thanh market looks like. Luckily, in the future, there will be a metro just like in many European cities, of which the London Underground and the Budapest Metro are amongst the two oldest systems in the world. And I just also went past a Nguyen Kim, which is actually an electronics store, much bigger than the Goi Di Dong electronics store. And Nguyen Kim is actually, I believe, around the same size as Best Buy, Circuit City, and Media Market, as well as Saturn. And as you can see, there are actually a lot of tall buildings around here, and it's quite dense and much nicer than Cholon. As you can see, a lot more organized. And I'm gonna be sleeping here rather than at Thu Dau Mot, which is too far from Ho Chi Minh City. As you can see, many people in the square do wear the Vietnamese dress, and I'm actually going to come into the Ben Thanh market to actually see what is inside. As you can see, it is a nicer version of Binh Tay, I believe so. As you can see, it's much more walkable than the other market in Cholon. And it does include some clothing as well as watches, jewelry there. I'm actually going to show you guys what the inside is like. As you can see, they do sell dresses over here for Lunar New Year. And they also sell other things as well. Let me speed up for a bit. As you can see, they also sell eye accessories as well as sunglasses and more watches. I'm not sure what these are, but they might be selling more items. And yeah, as you can see, basically a lot of clothing here. And I'm actually going to go around this market maybe to look for some things, but I might not buy it. As you can see, they also sell pho and food as well, unlike the other markets, which only really sells fruits and vegetables. As you can see, you could actually buy pho meals as well as, you guessed it, food. And as you can see, I'm not thinking out of eating here. I'm not sure how hygienic these food are, but I did have stomach aches when I was in Vietnam several times, because I'm not really used to the climate here and the food. So why not, I'm just gonna eat at a more westernized restaurant, or maybe a cleaner restaurant. Actually more expensive, sorry, if I'm like being classist here. And lastly, I wanted to show you guys, they also sell fruits and vegetables, as you can see, just like any farmer's market. So it's not just a clothing market, but you can buy food as well, and you could even buy food to even eat, not just fruits and vegetables. As you can see, it is basically a farmer's market here. Now at this restaurant, Uta Tao, which meant I think basically the youngest sibling, and that's the person's name. And as you can see, I ordered some rice. I'm actually going to show you guys when I come to the hotel, and it is actually next to the hotel. As you can see, this is actually the Liberty Hotel with the bistro in Ho Chi Minh City. As you can see, I just got some food, and I do believe this is sort of a rip-off, as it does cost 250,000 dong, which is a bit more than $10 just for this. I do believe $10 is justifiable for this in the US, but in Vietnam, I just don't really understand. And I did buy some things from Circle K, as you can see. Some snacks and some drinks from Circle K, as I did not really eat much this morning. I only ate the pigeon really at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's now like around 6:20 in the evening, as you can see, just past 6:15. And Circle K, there's a lot of locations in the US, particularly in the south, where they're used as like petrol stations, as well as, you guess, the convenience shop. But I don't really see many in Massachusetts, but I actually do see one in Medford, by the way, which is near Cambridge and Somerville. As you can see, this is what you could get for $10, proving District 1 is sort of a rip-off, as it mostly caters towards tourists. Yes, District 1 is an extremely wealthy neighborhood and expensive neighborhood in Ho Chi Minh City. And over here are some sauces I might use for my meal here. And I'm actually going to eat and maybe take a rest, and then tomorrow I'm going to go some more. So due to the fact I've had low quality sleep for the past few days with hard beds and stuff, and this is actually a soft bed, I actually did sleep early between 9 and then 1 o'clock, and then re-slept again between 4 and 8 o'clock. So now it's around 9 o'clock. I'm actually going to go out, enjoy the whole day into midnight, and hopefully change my sleeping schedule. Yeah, my sleeping schedule is so damn messed up. Now I've slept so less, and then I end up being so tired that not only did I take a nap, I actually took a long nap, like a 4-hour nap, essentially just a sleep. So why not? I'm just going to go out, get some breakfast, and then get some lunch. I think I might get breakfast at the Circle K because they just sell some small sandwiches there. So why not just get some breakfast and then do the laundry as well. As you can see, I do have the laundry. Instead, the hotel would actually do the laundry for me. I do know it's more expensive, but in Europe, I pay $10 routinely at these Speed Queen laundries and the Bubbles laundries in Hungary. So why not? I'm going to hand these out to, you guessed it, the hotel staff. I'm going to see you guys later. Okay guys, this is essentially my first Western meal of the trip and probably even of the year. It is sort of, but it's mostly a convenience food, just like in the airplane. As you can see, it is actually a ham sandwich. I'm actually going to eat and then going to do my laundry outside. As you can see, I do have a ton of laundry required. And therefore, why not? I'm just going to eat and see you guys later. I just dropped off the laundry, and as you can see, it is extremely busy in Ho Chi Minh City, but I'm actually going to walk to Bui Vien Street, which is actually a major street for foreigners. Why not? I'm actually going to go there and show you guys what it is. Now on the way to the Bui Vien walking street. As you can see, I'm currently at a KFC, and this is what KFC looks like in Vietnam, but not sure if I'm going to eat KFC in this country. As you can see, they also sell teriyaki chicken as well as some more local meals like rice, as you can see. So it's not like the US menu so much, but it's sort of similar, especially if you're used to KFC in the US and Canada as well as Europe. But why not? I'm actually going to go to Bui Vien walking street and show you guys what it is. As you can see, this is Bui Vien Street, fit with all the foreign restaurants. As you can see, Sushi Tay, which is actually based in another country in Asia and has several locations throughout Asia. Circle K, which is an American convenience store chain, as well as 7-Eleven if you go a bit further, as you can see. And they also have GS25, which is a Vietnamese equivalent of 7-Eleven. And this is just an ordinary road before the 90s, but during the 90s, Lonely Planet did introduce the street, and therefore this street became a backpacker's paradise. As you can see, they're actually full of tourists from like Europe, from Asia, and from other countries as well, and even the Americas. As you can see, this is what the street looks like. There are cars and motorcycles, however, so it's not as safe to walk in Bui Vien Street as maybe some European city centers, as many European city centers actually do ban cars and bicycles, actually motorbikes, unless they're like essential, kind of like ambulances or police cars or fire trucks or something. As you can see, I do think this is actually a block within the Bui Vien Street. As you can see, it is a lot more walkable. There are basically no cars here and very, very few motorcycles compared to Bui Vien, which does have a lot of motorcycles. And as you can see, this is an example of a bar of which many foreigners actually congregate at. Yeah, I'm sorry, there's some motorcyclists, so you have to be careful, but this is actually what a block looks like. It definitely cannot fit cars, and it's about the same size as many of the smaller European roads in certain European cities, like in Italy or something. Remember in Venice, I did actually go into streets which are even smaller than this. And before eating lunch, why not I would show you guys the menu of McDonald's. As you can see, there's several McDonald's locations in Vietnam, and McDonald's basically came to Vietnam about 10 years ago. And as you can see, you can get a Big Mac for about like $4. So quite cheap, yeah, compared to the US, where a single Big Mac costs like $6.50 or something. And as you can see, you could get like other burgers and stuff, as well as chicken. But unfortunately, there are not many meals containing rice, except I think maybe this, which is actually around $2, I believe so. bit less than $2. Okay guys, I'm currently at the restaurant and this is the meal I bought, which is actually broken rice with pork as well as some veggies. And I do believe this is meatloaf, but I'm not sure. And it is actually the BBQ Garden restaurant near my hotel in Ho Chi Minh City. So what I'm going to eat, and then I'm going to go to some museum before getting my laundry. After eating lunch, since this museum is actually close to the restaurant as well as the hotel, I'm actually going to visit the Museum of Ho Chi Minh City. It's actually a different museum than the History Museum of Ho Chi Minh City, but I do believe it is similar. As you can see, this is actually the Museum of Ho Chi Minh City. I'm actually going to go in and take a look around. And as you can see, the tickets are only about 30,000 VND per person, which meant just a bit more than $1. So I'm actually going to go in to look around. As you can see, in the beginning, it will show this guy, Nguyen Hu Can, who is actually, I believe, the founder of Saigon. As you can see, he actually expanded the territory of Vietnam from the north all the way to the south, as you can see. And here are some of the maps of the southern half of Vietnam over the years. And over here it shows the population of Ho Chi Minh City. As you can see, after the war ended, there are many people who actually fled to like Western countries due to the fact that communism took over Saigon. And this actually shows the administrative geography of Saigon, which is actually Ho Chi Minh City. And I believe this shows the population and the area of each neighborhood of Ho Chi Minh City. As you can see, Quan 1, Quan 3, Cu Chi. So it basically shows each different neighborhoods. And Thu Duc is actually a separate administrative city within Ho Chi Minh City. And this shows some of the pictures of Ho Chi Minh City over the years, from like the 50s all the way to the present era. As you can see, this room does include all the artifacts of Ho Chi Minh City, archaeological artifacts, as you can see, with some of the pottery as well as rocks and stuff. And as you can see, here's some more artifacts. And here's some more. And it does show some maps as well of the ecosystems and the river system as well. And I do believe this is actually the climate. As you can see, it is really hot. The coldest temperature is like above 25 degrees Celsius. And in comparison, the world average is actually 15 degrees Celsius as for the temperature. And it does show the rainfall. As you can see, luckily it's not the rainy season, but the rainy season actually does last from the middle of spring to basically early fall. And as you can see, here's some more pottery for ancient Saigonese people. As you can see. Over here it does show Ho Chi Minh skyline over the time. As you can see, things do look different today versus these years. And as you can see, I think these people are doing some pottery work, as you can see. And over here it does show like agrarian Vietnam as well as Ho Chi Minh City. And here is some like ship equipment, I think so. As you can see, I think these are for boats and stuff. And let me show you guys. These are actually, I think, measuring units, measuring tools, and over here are some of the old measuring units. These are basically traditional units, kind of like in the UK, the imperial system, and in the US, customary units. As you can see, like you might not understand it, but luckily they do convert in meters, in liters, and in terms of grams as well, to see the equivalence of the scale. And as you can see, this is one of Vietnam's satellite systems. And one of the first Asian guys to space is actually Pham Thuan, who's actually a Vietnamese person living in the Soviet Union. And over here are some high quality Vietnamese good brand names. As you can see, I'm not really sure of many of these, but what I know for sure is I'm not sure if it's any comparable with German goods or European goods, but they're high quality in comparison with other Vietnamese goods. As you can see, these are Vietnamese people creating pottery, and this is an example of a pottery work by a Vietnamese person. As you can see, from what I believe, I'm not sure what it is, as they don't really label the numbers, and it's quite small, but I do believe, since this is actually a Saigon ceramic vase from the 20th century, yes. the 20th century. It does kind of replicate many Roman and Egyptian faces, as you can see. And bronze making has been a thing in Vietnam since like 3500 BC, which has been a long time since the Bronze Ages, basically. Actually 3500 years ago, not 3500 BC. And as you can see, there are actually some more walks. And Venusat is actually the first Vietnamese satellite in orbit. It has been in orbit since like 2008 or something, as you can see. It basically launched into orbit in 2008. And here's some more pottery walk. And shoemaking is quite a common industry. And yeah, there's actually a lot of shoe cleaning scams throughout Ho Chi Minh City. And here's some more tools as well, as you can see. And if you were to go here, it is actually going to be the Yalong Palace and the tunnel within, which was started in 1885 and completed in 1890. And it was called Yalong Palace because of the street and the park in front were named after Yalong. So one I'm going to walk in and see what it's like. As you can see, I'm currently in the Yalong Palace, and here's some artifacts and pictures, as you can see. And this is what the commercial museum looked like in 1890 during colonialism. And as you can see, this is actually the estimated expenditure of building underground shelter after the coup d'etat, which happened in 1963, as you can see at the Independence Palace. And this is actually the table and chairs placed in the living room of the shelter in 1963 during the coup d'etat. And on the outside it does show some weapons used against colonialism as well as during the Vietnam War. As you can see, this is actually a field gun, and over here, as you guys all know, is actually a cannon, and I believe that is actually a card or something, I think, for the cannon. And over there is actually one of the tanks, and over here is another cannon. There are actually several more field guns as well as cannons around here, as you can see. And if I want to walk more, I'm curious what the tank is going to be. Over here is a 19th century cannon, and this is a more modern field gun built the same year as the other field gun over there. And this is actually a tank. Specifically, this is tank M41, which was shipped to southern Vietnam by the US troops in 1965 to actually crush the Viet Cong. But in 1975, at the end of the war, the Liberation Forces, which is actually the Viet Cong and the Viet Minh, actually confiscated this tank to liberate Saigon from the quote-unquote US. And over here is actually a fighter jet and I believe a helicopter. This fighter jet, the UH-1 helicopter, was actually used to liberate Cambodia from the Khmer Rouge in the late 1970s. As many Vietnamese people actually use this, which are actually seized from the American soldiers. And over here is actually an F-5 fighter, and I believe over there is actually another fighter jet. It's actually called the A-37 fighter jet. Now both of these planes are actually crucial to helping Vietnam win the war. As you can see, the F-5 was actually the plane used to attempt to bomb the Independence Palace, which was the seat for the Saigon government, actually the Republic of Vietnam government. And both planes are actually commanded by Nguyen Thanh Trung, T-R-U-N-G, who's still alive to this day. He's in his mid-70s now. And lastly, this is the anti-aircraft artillery from the Soviet Union, used to fight American forces in the north during 1964. And why not, I'm actually going inside the museum again to see what is remaining in the museum. I'm now in the second floor now, and as you can see, it does discuss the birth of the city's party committee, which means essentially the birth of communism in Ho Chi Minh. And as you can see, communism basically started in Ho Chi Minh around 1930 by, you guessed it, Ho Chi Minh, who's actually called Nguyen Ai Quoc in this bulletin board. And as you can see, it actually does show some of the communists over the years. And over here it does show Vietnam's invasion against the French after the end of World War II, as many Vietnamese did declare communism in 1945 after the Axis forces actually did lose the war. And as you can see, over here does discuss the fight against the colonialists, because many of the colonialists, they wanted to regain the colony in Vietnam, but in fact many Vietnamese did not like it, and many communists and Vietnamese peasants actually did fight against the colonial forces. And here are some of the tools used during the colonial fight. As you can see, a typewriter, a radio, actually a Japanese radio, as you can see, and this is a Dutch radio from Philips. In August 1945, there's actually a revolution of which many Vietnamese people actually came with spears and bamboos to try to take power of Ho Chi Minh City against any of the colonialists and Europeans. Even though the Americans had more advanced technology, this is what the communists actually used to actually transport weapons, documents, and liberation zones to the revolutionary bases of Saigon during the Vietnam War in the 60s. As you can see, it's actually quite crazy. They used these boats, which is less technologically advanced than many American boats during the time, like the PBR. And as you can see, this is actually a sewing machine. And over here is another sewing machine. Actually show another sewing machine over here. So essentially there are two in this room, and I'm not sure if I go in here what it is going to be. Actually shows some of the clothing, accessories, and apparel used by Vietnamese during the time and over the years. As you can see, this is actually a telephone used in the Vietnam War, and some of these are watches, eyeglasses, as you can see, and a radio, as well as army clothing. And I believe this is actually a camera, a camcorder, and over here actually some radios as well as typewriters. And these are actually musical instruments. As you can see, a violin. And over here more modern cameras. As you can see, these look quite like any modern DSLR cameras, but in reality they're not really that modern. And if you were to go here, I think this might be one of these sleeping bags where people sleep in, like Vietnam and even in the US as well. You can see it in parks. And some of these are actually silverware and stuff. And I think this might be medication, but I'm not sure. And this is definitely a fan used by many Asian people. So basically these are artifacts used during the Vietnam War by the Vietnamese people. In this room it contains some of the machines used during the Vietnam War, and as you can see, this is actually a printing machine. Over here is actually a Vespa, which was used during the Vietnam War, as well as in Top Gear's Vietnam Special, when the Top Gear trio attempted to ride from Saigon, which is Ho Chi Minh City, to Ha Long City, but instead they actually took an overnight train from Dong Ha, which is actually in Quang Tri Province, to Hanoi, and then took the bike from Hanoi to Ha Long, because it makes no sense to ride from Saigon to Hanoi, because Saigon to Hanoi is really long and really hard with a motorcycle. Over here is actually a Suzuki motorcycle, so it's not just Honda which makes motorcycles. And here's another printing machine, and here is actually a cart used during the Tet Offensive in 1968. And over here is actually a pack bike used to carry things, and it's used by a lot of conscript laborers as well as youth. And yes, they actually use a bike to carry stuff. I can't even believe seeing these in the US these days, because if you want to carry this much, you should use a Ford Transit van or a Sprinter of some sort. Over here it does show some artifacts of the Republic of Vietnam Army. As you can see, this is actually the flag of the Republic of Vietnam, used by many Viet Americans to this day. Yes, in fact, if you were to go to San Jose or Los Angeles, you'll actually see a lot of these flags. And as you can see, these are some maps of the Ho Chi Minh campaign, as you can see, to actually liberate Vietnam from the Americans. And as you can see, the Ho Chi Minh campaign actually started in spring of 1975 with the victories of the campaign to liberate Buon Ma Thuot, the Highlands in 1975, Hue and Da Nang in 1975, which are actually in central Vietnam. As you can see, here's some more artifacts, and here are some more as well. And these are actually artifacts for the Viet Cong and Viet Minh soldiers during the war in Vietnam. And over here is actually a flag of the Viet Cong, as you can see. And here are some pictures during the Vietnam War of the Viet Cong. And over here are some more artifacts. As you can see, this is actually a famous Asian hat used by many Asian farmers even to this day. The last room I'm going to show you guys is the currency room. As you can see, this is actually the Vietnamese dong. As you can see, from 100 Vietnamese dong, which is basically nothing, to around 500,000, which is around $20 US, as you can see. And interestingly, all the dong pictures actually show a picture of Ho Chi Minh, as you can see, just like this as well. And here are some ancient coins in Vietnam, as you can see. I don't think Vietnam really uses coins anymore, I'm not sure, but I don't think they use coins according to the money I have. And here are actually some artifacts, as you can see. These are actually more modern Vietnamese coins. And over here are actually the colonial era. And if you could see here, this is during the 19th century, just before the colonial era. And it basically shows some of the coins over the time. This is actually in the 20th century, which is actually far more modern. Actually, my grandparents were born in the early 20th century anyways. And as you can see, these are actually coin currencies. And this is actually Vietnamese banknotes in the early years before the Democratic Republic of Vietnam was actually founded. Actually during the colonial era, as you can see, it actually looks a lot different than today. And here's actually some more. And if you were to go through the years, you actually see, you guessed it, the modern currency with Ho Chi Minh's picture throughout. This is actually Vietnam during communism, prior to the war. And I believe this is actually what the currency looks like during the war, as you can see. And if you were to go here, it will show the currency after the war. And if you guys all know, Vietnam did go through hyperinflation sometime after the war. So hence, the Vietnamese dong is worth like absolutely nothing. Kind of like the Zimbabwe dollar. But the Zimbabwe dollar and the Venezuelan bolivar in reality, they're actually superseded by other currencies because they suffered super hyperinflation, where the currency is is rendered worthless. Actually, $1 US is actually equal to nearly 100 quadrillion Zimbabwean dollars. Now, before I leave this museum, let me show you guys some of the events and the culture of Vietnam. As you can see, here are actually some weddings. This is actually a Khmer wedding. This is actually a Chinese wedding. This is a Cham wedding. I'm not sure where the wedding in Ho Chi Minh City is, but one picture is actually gone. It should be here, somewhere in here. Some other weddings over the years. As you can see, some of these are actually old weddings. And I do believe it does have a death anniversary somewhere up here, but I'm not sure where it is because there's actually some people walking. So why not? I'm just going to leave the museum and going to go somewhere else. Now next to the People's Committee of Ho Chi Minh City, as you can see, this is actually a military barrack of a Vietnamese People's Army, but I'm not sure if I should record because it could be offensive, especially since this is a communist country and they don't want us to record. As you can see, this is actually the People's Committee of Ho Chi Minh City. I'm actually going to show you guys the other side, which does show them a better view of the People's Committee. As you can see, this is finally a better view of the People's Committee of Ho Chi Minh City, which is actually the Ho Chi Minh City Hall. Yes, the City Hall of Ho Chi Minh City was built between 1902 and 1908 in the French colonial style by architect Pagoda. As you can see, I'll show you guys an even better view. Over here is the City Hall. As you can see, I'm not sure if I could go in, but I'll see. As you can see, this is a much better view of the City Hall, and over here is actually a Rolls-Royce dealer. I cannot believe some Vietnamese people could actually afford these cars. I actually talked to the rep and he said the costs range from $1.5 million for the Ghost in US dollars to $2.5 million for the Phantom. That's crazy. In the US, these cars would be $300,000 to $500,000. respectively. I can't even believe some Vietnamese could afford these, and I also saw Bentleys as well and a ton of Maybachs, which would absolutely be rare even in the US. I can't even believe some Vietnamese could actually afford these cars. It's so expensive. Next to the City Hall, which is actually modeled after the Paris L'Hôtel de Ville, is actually a statue of Ho Chi Minh, as you can see. Basically, the person of whom the city is named after, and over there is actually the Nguyen Hue music fountain where nightly music was held. Basically, music is actually held there every single night, and is actually named after a Vietnamese general who actually, I believe, unified Vietnam during the 18th century. Now, after the Nguyen Hue water fountain, I finally arrived at the Opera House once again, and luckily, unlike several days ago, today it is actually open, as I've actually seen several people actually leave the Opera House. Unfortunately, I was misled. The Opera House is actually currently not open, but will open tonight. As you can see, this is actually a breathtaking view of the Nguyen Hue music fountain. And I'm thinking of maybe going to another museum. I'm not just walking around Ho Chi Minh City, and as you can see, this guy, he's carrying a basket. If you see some guy cleaning your shoes, just run away from them, because they're gonna scam you out of your money. I know it's a scam, as my family have told me it's a scam, and plus many YouTubers have told me it's a scam, and plus I could realize the phrase, nobody does things for free. Everybody would charge you if they're doing you a service. As you can see, this is the Vietcom Bank Tower. Vietcom Bank is one of the banks in Vietnam, and over there is actually a statue of Tran Hung Dao, which is actually a royal prince during the Dai Viet era, during the medieval era, basically in the 13th century. I'm currently at the Bac Dang Wharf. As you can see, the Bac Dang Wharf actually stretches 1.3 kilometers between one shipyard and a flagpole, as you can see. And it actually overlooks the Saigon River, and you can actually take cruises here. I'm not thinking of taking cruise yet, but I'm not sure when to take it, but maybe sometime soon. As you can see, that's Thu Dau City, which is a separate city within Ho Chi Minh City, kind of like Cambridge is within Boston though, but Cambridge is actually a separate city from Boston, but many people refer to Cambridge as Boston, especially if you're outside of Massachusetts. As you can see, it is a clearer view of the statue of Tran Hung Dao, and now I'm going to return to the laundry shop to actually get my laundry, but I'm not sure if it's safe to walk or not, so why not I'm going to take the taxi. Yes, the taxi. I'm waiting for either Vinasun or Mylin to take me, because they don't have the meter scam, unlike some of these other taxi companies which are not so official. I'm currently on a Vietnamese bus, and it costs around 7,000 dong to actually enter, or I believe around 30 cents or something, a bit less than 30 cents. And as you can see, the Saigon bus is actually quite dangerous to enter, because unlike European or American bus systems, this bus does not stop. Instead, even though it opens the door, it keeps on going, which makes it kind of dangerous to actually enter. I've just exited the bus and now entered the Grab car. As you can see, this is the Vietnamese equivalent of Uber, and I'm currently on an I-10, the premium edition. And as you can see, I'm actually going to head to the laundry and then back to the hotel once again. I just got out of the Grab, and as you can see, this is the Hyundai i10, which is actually a subcompact city car. They actually do have a hatchback as well as a saloon. I've mostly seen the hatch option in Europe. And why not, I'm going to get my laundry, and I'm going to return to the room to actually get some more water, because my voice is starting to get a bit bad now. I don't want to have the Europe situation happen once again, which could screw up the trip at any point. As you can see, I just got my bag, and I'm going to get some water, and then I'm going to go to the War Remnants Museum, and then I'm going to eat dinner. Why not? It's super duper hot, and it's really hard to enjoy Ho Chi Minh City just like I enjoy Europe, because in Europe it's not so hot, so I was able to go to a lot of places in a single day. But here, with the crazy weather, I just don't really want to go out. The best weather would be around 15 to 25 degrees Celsius. I'm now close to the War Remnant Museum, and as you can see, this is actually Lê Quý Đôn Secondary School, one of the most prestigious and the oldest secondary school of Ho Chi Minh City. According to some sources, it is named after the Vietnamese poet during the 18th century, whose name is Lê Quý Đôn. I do have some relatives who have attended this school many years ago, and this school is quite prestigious. It's basically the Boston Latin or the Stuyvesant of schools in Ho Chi Minh City. Okay guys, I just entered the War Remnants Museum, and as you can see, there are a lot of US fighter jets, as you can see, as well as tanks, and that's one Boeing plane. And it includes a lot of artifacts from the First Indochina War, as well as the Vietnam War between 1954 and 1975. And this War Remnants Museum was actually opened in 1975 and is the most popular museum, featuring a ton of Western tourists. As you can see, there are a ton of European, American tourists all around, and from what it counted, basically about half, at least half, are actually foreigners. Okay guys, inside this museum you could actually find this room, which is actually the Vietnam War, as you can see, which happened between 1954 and 1975, and it does show some Vietnamese soldiers who are part of the Viet Minh and Viet Cong, as you can see, or the communists who fought against the Americans. And this is a map of Vietnam, as you can see, which does include the central region all the way down to like the deep south. Yes. And over there, up there is actually the north. And if you could find out, I do believe this is sort of like the east, the central region. And then this, the Mekong Delta, many Vietnamese love to call it the west. Yes, I'm not joking. Even though Vietnam is basically kind of like Chile. And as you can see, this is actually a typical hut during the war. And over here are some equipment. Basically, this includes a mandolin as well as a hat for the war, as well as even a radio. And this includes medical equipment for the Vietnam War, as you can see. Quite simple indeed compared to like American medical equipment of today. And this is basically a cart used to transport dead people in 1968, just months after the Tet Offensive. Specifically, it actually carried the corpses of 7 conscripted laborers, including Nguyen Van Dan's daughter from the march to his village. And as you can see, it does show some political prisoners, and it also shows some others as well. He actually survived leg amputations, as you can see, but he actually died around 6 years ago, unfortunately at the age of 80, which is still quite long compared to many Vietnamese people, but it's not as long as some others, because there are many people who were born the same year as him who are still alive today, and it does include some of these other people as well, of whom they're quite young. As you can see, they're about the same age as some of my oldest uncles and aunts, yeah. Outside you actually see pictures of global hatred against the Vietnam War. As you can see, it's not just the communists which hate the Vietnam War, but also Americans as well. As many more Americans were drafted into the Vietnam War during the 60s and 70s, it became increasingly unpopular. Many Americans did not want to be drafted to the Vietnam War. In fact, many did not want to go to war at all and then die. And basically, let me tell you guys, Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson, they basically conscripted tons of US soldiers to fight for Vietnam, to fight against communism. But in reality, many people, especially university students, do not like the idea of being conscripted. So therefore, many did protest against Vietnam War. And therefore, in 1975, the Vietnam War ended. And in 1973, Americans basically withdrew from Vietnam. As you can see, there are many people who actually protested against the war, GIs for peace, and it's not just the US, it's also Western Europe, which also protested. Basically, in 1968, the same year of the Prague Spring, as well as several different revolutions throughout Europe. Okay guys, I'm currently in the second floor, and this is actually the B-52 plane, one of the famous planes in Vietnam, which is a type of strategic bomber that has been produced since 1952, hence the number 52. And it has been one of the many strategic weapons of the US, as you can see. And over here are some of the war crimes the US committed against Vietnam. Saying the US is like the quote-unquote good guy is kind of a bit misleading. The US is good compared to the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union committed absolutely a ton of war crimes and crimes against humanity against their own people. But Americans also commit war crimes as well. Take a look at this Thanh Phong massacre, which killed like 20 people. I'm sorry, the names are a bit blurred because people were standing. But as you can see, there's so many people being killed by the US in Vietnam. As you can see, this is actually a famous photograph in 1972 of a napalm girl. As you can see, I don't know if it would be censored on YouTube, but as you can see, US troops actually did drop napalm bombs into Thanh Province, which is near Ho Chi Minh City, destroying houses and killing civilians as well. And it caused this 9-year-old girl, who is now in her early 60s, whose name is Phan Thi Kim Phuc, to get burned. And then she's now running. And this photograph was taken by Nick Ut, who in 2013 actually presented this photo to the War Remnants Museum, and they actually won a Pulitzer Prize in 1972. As you can see, these are victims of the Vietnam War after the Vietnam War ended. As you can see, this is in 2003, basically after I was born and well after the Vietnam War. And as you can see, this is actually an amputee. And according to the data, around 3 million Vietnamese were killed, among them 2 million civilians, 2 million people were injured, and 300,000 people missed. It is absolutely crazy to see that number of Vietnamese being killed. And many Vietnamese were killed even after the Vietnam War due to the war, and many did suffer from Agent Orange well after the Vietnam War, as I'll show you guys in the next room. And as you can see, here are some weapons being used in the Vietnam War. As you can see, this guy, he's actually executed by a US soldier just 2 days after the Tet Offensive. His name is Nguyen Van Lem, and he was a Viet Cong soldier before he got executed. And he's amongst the victims of US aggression in Vietnam. This is actually a very famous image. You can search it up online. I'm currently in the Agent Orange room, and as you can see, the US Army conducted nearly 20,000 missions spraying about 80 million liters of toxic chemicals, 61% of which was Agent Orange, containing 366 kilograms of dioxin. And basically a lot of villages were sprayed in order to basically defeat the Viet Cong soldiers in the forest. These many Viet Cong soldiers were hiding in the forest, and there were definitely a lot of consequences related to this. As you can see, there are a lot of mentally deformed babies and physically deformed babies as well. And it's not just babies which suffered, also many adults also suffered from the disease. Basically, there were like 3 to 4 million people exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam, in the south. Yes, it's basically crazy amounts of people. And Agent Orange mostly happens in the jungles of Vietnam. As you can see, the amount of deformities are just kind of insane. As you can see, a lot of people were either physically or mentally retarded, and yeah, many of them are basically hospitalized or even institutionalized for the rest of their lives just because they have the disease. And it's not only Vietnamese people which suffer from the disease, foreigners also did, just like this guy. He's actually Australian, and he suffered from the Agent Orange and is amongst the victims of the agents. Yes, it's quite insane. This is probably the last room I'll visit of the War Remnants Museum because it will close in about 10 minutes. And as you can see, it includes this lady who was born in 2002, so basically around the same time, maybe a bit after me. But as you can see, she was actually a victim of Agent Orange, and guess what? She's only about 120 centimeters tall, which is really short. In comparison, I'm about 170 centimeters, which is around 5'7" though. And as you can see, it does include some other victims as well, and some resolving, I believe so. And this is actually a prosthetics, as you can see, prosthetic legs. And it also showed some other people with deformities as well. I'll show you guys over here. As you can see, this lady is actually in the wheelchair, and I do believe she's actually disabled due to the fact there's Agent Orange. And now I'm actually going to leave the War Remnants Museum and going to go to the park and eat dinner. Now, due to the fact there's still enough time, I actually broke my promise and decided to show you guys this room. As you can see, it does include some photographs of the Vietnam War in here. And if you were to go all the way here, it shows some of the photographers who died or went missing during in Vietnam and Indochina. As you can see, there's so many which have died in Vietnam. And this guy, he's quite famous. His name is Pho Giap. He actually died like only around a bit more than 10 years ago. Basically the same time as Nelson Mandela, who was also equally old. And as you can see, they show other images of the Vietnam War. Okay guys, this is the last room I'm going to be visiting and I'm going to be out. As you can see, Vietnam declared independence in 1945 from the colonial forces as the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. And then these are some pictures, as you can see. And this is actually Dien Bien Phu, the War of Dien Bien Phu. The Battle of Dien Bien Phu actually happened in 1954, the same year of the Geneva Accords, which actually split Vietnam there. And it was basically the Vietnamese invading against the French colonialists, which ultimately pushed out the colonialists, but the colonialists actually were replaced by the Americans. And as you can see, this is the Vietnam War. As you can see, the war against the American aggression. And now I'm actually going to go out. Now, due to the fact the War Remnants Museum actually closes at 17:30, I was forced to leave. And therefore I actually arrived and eat dinner. As you can see, this is my sushi, and my other meal will come out soon. As I'll show you guys, I actually eat in a Japanese restaurant this time. And tomorrow I'll try my best to choose mainly Vietnamese food to try out their local cuisine. And I got my last meal, which is actually butodon. I'm actually going to eat and then going to take a walk at the Towson Park. So why not, I'm going to eat. I just left the restaurant on the way to the Towson Park, and as you can see, this is the restaurant I ate, Hokkaido Sachi Sushi. And I'm just gonna walk to the park. As you can see, now I'm in the Tao Dan Park. I'm sorry if I call it Towson. It is actually Tao Dan. As you can see, it actually covers 10 hectares of Ho Chi Minh City's land. It is behind the Independence Palace, and soon some part of the Tao Dan Park will be actually used as the metro station, as Ho Chi Minh City would expand its metro station kind of like in Hanoi, but it already had a metro station some years ago. As you can see, I'm actually currently walking around the Tao Dan Park, and it's quite breathtaking, to be honest, with a lot of trees. I'm sorry it's now a bit dark, but you can still enjoy, as there's some guys who are playing like some form of tennis, I believe so, around there. Over here is actually a statue of Mahatma Gandhi, and here are some more sculptures and statues, as you can see. And over there is actually an extension of the Tao Dan Park. So why not? I'm actually going to cross the road. Well, crossing the road could be very dangerous in Ho Chi Minh City because motorcycles and cars never stop for you, unlike in the US and in parts of Europe. In the park you can find the temple of the Hong Kings. As you can see, this is what the temple looks like. It is quite a small temple, but it is actually a place of worship. As you can see, there's a shrine, and right in front of it is actually, you guessed it, a water fountain. As you can see, it does change color every few seconds. Yes, as you can see, I'll show you guys a closer view in a second, but it does change color. And it's quite cool, to be honest. And these are some guys practicing martial arts here. As you can see, this is actually a closer view of the water fountain. It's quite breathtaking to see. This is quite a nice place to walk during the day, and at night there are of course night performances. This is quite nice to look at. And over there I believe is another sculpture, as you can see. Yeah, so why not, I'm just going to return to the hotel. I'm a bit tired now because of all the heat. I've walked a lot, and also my sleeping schedule is kind of messed up as well, which is kind of crazy given the fact I've not really slept on the airplane, and also I have bad sleeping habits in Happy One at Thu Dau Mot. So why not I'm just going to return to the hotel. I just returned to the hotel for the second to last night, and as you can see, it is the next day, and I'm actually going to go to some of the last attractions in Ho Chi Minh City. So why not? I'm actually going to get some street food. So why not, since there are many restaurants, I'm actually going to stop by the Binh street food and look for food around there, and if I cannot find really good food, then why not I go to some restaurant. As you can see, this is what the market looks like, and in my opinion, I do believe this is actually much nicer than a Binh Thanh food market, and I believe it's much cleaner, despite the fact it looks like it's built on a shed rather than on any permanent housing. So why not, I'm just gonna get food here and going to eat. As you can see, I do believe this food market is a lot nicer than Binh Thanh. It looks more hip and more modern. As you can see, I actually ordered some pho at Pho Viet Star, and I actually bought number 4, which is Nam Bo Vien. And why not, I'm actually going to run and show you guys what the meal looks like. As you can see, after lunch I plan to go to the Ho Chi Minh Campaign Museum, but unfortunately it actually closes during the weekend, even though there's a car there. But when I search on Google Maps, unfortunately it actually closes during the weekend, which is quite ironic. As you can see, I just don't understand why. So why not? There's a zoo next door, and since it's now noontime, I'm actually going to go to the zoo before entering the Ho Chi Minh History Museum. Yes, there's another Ho Chi Minh History Museum other than that other one near the Independence Palace, and as you can see, this is what the zoo looks like. Many of my relatives do complain that the zoo is quite small, but in reality, why not, since it's quite convenient and next to the History Museum, why not I'm just going to go to the zoo for a bit. At the entrance you're greeted to 2 gates, as you can see, the other gate as well as this gate closer, as well as you get to the fountain, and I'm not sure who this statue is, but this guy is actually Jean-Baptiste Louis Pierre, who's actually a French botanist and an expert in Asian studies, as you can see, and hence he's located at this Saigon zoo. In the entrance, you're also greeted to some swans, and as you can see, this is actually a vine tunnel. I've seen many of these throughout Europe and even the US, and I'm actually going to look for some animals. Why not? Now, I did say that I'm not going to go to many zoos, but in fact, this zoo is actually really close to the Ho Chi Minh History Museum, so why not I take a plunge. Plus the History Museum is not yet open, so because I have extra time, why not go here? Because many zoos are similar. Look at other cities in Europe. I have not been to the Bern Zoo or the Zurich Zoo or the Ljubljana Zoo, because many of them are quite similar, but the Berlin Zoo and Toronto Zoo are quite major and have panda bears and stuff, so that's why I go there. And as you can see, I think that's a Christmas tree over there. This is actually the first animal I've seen, and I do believe it's a peacock, but I've actually seen some replica panda bear as well as a zebra. As you can see, I'm sorry if some of the bushes actually hide, but here it is. I'm currently in a primate section, and as you can see, there are actually some monkeys. I do believe this is actually a yellow gibbon, as you can see, with its yellow cheeks. Now all the signs are actually in Vietnamese, as you can see, so there's really no English translation, which is kind of unfortunate if you're actually a tourist and you want to know what region or like basically what the animal is. Unfortunately, there's actually no English translation. But as you can see, I do think this gibbon, the yellow cheek gibbon, actually comes from Vietnam and Cambodia. Over here, Asian elephants, as you can see, I'm not sure what the African elephants are, but these elephants are actually based in Vietnam, as well as the rest of Southeast Asia, as well as the Indian subcontinent. And as you can see, this zoo is actually covered with vine tunnels. As you can see, it's not just the first area, but also this area as well. I think this provides some shade, at least from the scorching sun, and I think over there is actually giraffe. Due to the fact I do understand some Vietnamese, let me describe to you. According to the text over there, the giraffe goes from 5 to 6 meters and is around 1.2 metric tons. Now, as you all know, I did move to the West at a young age, so my Vietnamese knowledge is not as good as many other Vietnamese people, and I could barely speak Vietnamese anymore because I basically kind of abandoned the language in favor of English, French, German, and Russian. Even though I don't really speak Vietnamese, I could actually speak at least 3 or 4 languages. So it's not like I only speak English or anything like many Americans. I do, however, speak multiple languages. As you can see, there's actually quite a small amusement park in the zoo, but I'm not going to any of these attractions. Obviously, not only am I too big for some of them, like the planes, as they're catered towards young children, I just don't have enough time. But as you can see, it's quite fun if I'm like 10 years old or less. Here is the tiger section. As you can see, this is actually panther tiger, which weighs between 200 and 300 kilograms. And I think this is one of the many sitting places of the zoo. I'm now currently in the bird section, and according to Google Lens, these are actually white storks, as you can see. And if you were to go all the way here, you can find other birds as well. As you can see, here's some more birds. I believe these are arguses. And if you want to go a bit further, you could actually see an iguana. So over here, it's actually an iguana, as you can see. Over here are actually lesser adjutants. And as you can see, this is actually a fountain filled with a lot of lily pads. As you can see, it's quite nice at this zoo. Here's some of the last birds I'm gonna show you guys, and I'm thinking I'm going to another section of the zoo before the museum opens. There is actually a room in this zoo, I believe a museum, which contains all of the leaf samples, as you can see, as well as some beans and fruit samples over here. And as you can see, many of the fruits and beans, they're actually placed inside this cubicle to actually preserve them, kind of like some frozen babies or frozen embryos, to be honest. And over here are actually some leaves, as you can see. And here it showcases some animals as well, kind of like at the entrance of the zoo, where they show some statues. And as you can see, it does show the name in Vietnamese as well as English. As you can see, there's several variants of deer, as well as I do believe this is a tiger. And there's several different animals. And here, I'm not sure what it is, but I do think it includes some fish from what I could see. This museum also features a crocodile, as you can see, as well as some more deer. And I do believe over here is actually a bear, as you can see. This is actually a bear. And as you can see, this is, I believe, a type of snake. It does show another snake as well as some other creatures as well. So I'm actually going to go out and see what the outside looks like. As you can see, this is actually one more exhibition. Now lastly, before I go out, I just gotta show you guys, there are actually some skeleton samples of different animals, as you can see. And I'm now going to go out of the museum because this is basically essentially the same with some other animals. As you can see, some tigers, the panther tiger, as well as some birds and stuff. So right now I'm actually going to go out of here. As you can see, this is actually the exit. Over here are some reptiles, as you can see, with some iguanas, lizards and stuff. And I do believe this is a turtle, but unfortunately this turtle is still sleeping, so I might not be able to show you guys. But as you can see, there's actually a shell, so I know it's a turtle or a tortoise of some kind. As you can see, I do believe in the entrance there's actually a band playing. And as you can see, there's actually the orchid house in this botanical garden and zoo, which does include all sorts of flowers and plants. As you can see, it basically looks kind of like a greenhouse in many instances, because it really is. And inside you can see certain samples of flowers, but I'm not sure what the name is because they don't really specify. I don't believe they specify anywhere. But as you can see, these are some of the flower samples. And as you can see, this is actually beautiful park scenery, as you can see, with the bridge. I think I could cross it, but I'm not sure because that bridge might be kind of small. It might collapse if somebody were to walk through it, but I'll try. And over there is actually the garden, as you can see, the orchard house. So why not, I'm actually going to cross the bridge into the other side so I could go to another section. As you can see, I'm now in the other section now. For there's actually a tripping hazard. You can see some rocks, but I'll try my best and watch my step as I go. Oh, finally. As you can see, I'm now on the other side with all the nice trees and stuff. I now just entered the west side of the park, and as you can see, this is actually an ostrich. There's actually also another giraffe. I don't know where it is, but I think it's gone. And I'm not sure where the zebra is, but the zoo does say there's a zebra over here. And as you can see, guys, over here are the zebras. Over here is a rhino. Over here are some more ostriches, more than the previous exhibition. And guess what? Over here is another amusement park, the second amusement park. And I do believe this is actually a roller coaster of some kind, of which I'm not going to ride. Of course, I'm quite scared of heights. I'm acrophobic, and I don't really know what will happen. This is quite fearful to be on a roller coaster, at least for me. I'm currently in the reptile room, and this room is dedicated to reptiles. As you can see, this wing of the room is dedicated to the Burmese python, which is based in Burma as well as other parts of Asia. As you can see, Burma is actually called Myanmar officially, but many Burmese people still call it Burma. Just like Thailand actually has two names, Thailand and Siam, as you can see. And this is actually a reticulated python, so another type of python compared to the Burmese python. And over here you'll find more iguanas, as you can see, the common iguana, just like at the previous exhibition. Yeah, so this zoo is quite small compared to other zoo, and this is actually the green iguana compared to the more orange one. You might not know this animal, and you might believe it is an alligator crocodile, but in reality they call it the Malayan water monitor. Over here is actually a water dragon. I'm now on my way out of the reptile exhibition, and as you can see, this is actually king cobra, another form of snake other than the python. As you can see, now Python, the programming language, is not named after a snake, even though there is actually a snake logo. In fact, it's named after Monty Python, a famous comedy show in the UK. Now in this section, as you can see, there are actually some deers and antelopes. As you can see, I'm not thinking of going in, but I might go in. I just don't have much time remaining before I go to the museum, the history museum next door. As you can see, over here are some deer, and I do believe this is actually the elk deer. I'm not sure what the hawk deer looks like, but you can see in the picture, as you can see, I think it's due to the number of antlers or the type of antlers they have. As you can see, I do believe these are elk deers. Correct me if I'm wrong. And yeah, I think over here are actually hawk deers. I'm not sure, but correct me if I'm wrong. And over here are actually common elands, kind of like what I see in Europe. Due to the fact this is essentially my last day in Ho Chi Minh City before going to Hanoi, and I wanted to maximize the trip, I've actually left the zoo now. As you can see, I'm currently at the exit, and over here is actually a water park for children as well as some adults. I'm not going to go. I don't have a swimming suit, unfortunately, so why not? I'm actually going to go to the history museum. And last stop here is actually a room dedicated to flamingos, but I've seen flamingos at the Berlin Zoo, so no need for it. So why not? I'm just heading out. Okay guys, I'm currently in the History Museum of Ho Chi Minh City, and as you can see in the entrance, you're actually greeted with this tree, which does denote Lunar New Year is actually going to come. And I'm currently in this room, which denotes all the 54 ethnic groups in Vietnam. Basically, there's about 54 ethnic groups in Vietnam compared to about 56 in China, in the mainland, including, you guessed it, Russian. As you can see, first up, you're actually greeted with the Cham people, who are Austronesian and are based around central Vietnam in Ninh Thuan and Binh Duong Province. As you can see, I do believe these are some of the attire they actually wear. different from the regular kin Vietnamese people. And over here some of the pottery as well as basically some of the jewelry, as you can see. And over here is the pottery of the Hoa people, basically essentially the Han people of Vietnam, as you can see. These are essentially the Han Chinese people. And over here is one example of the Han Chinese handicraft. And if you were to see here, these denote some of the ethnic groups in Vietnam, as you can see. Viet people, Khmer, which is actually Cambodian, and then Cham over there, and actually this is Han Chinese down over here. There are also some other tribal groups, much of which live in rural areas. I'm not sure where the Hmong people are in this. And over here it does denote some of the ethnic groups in Vietnam, as you can see. Basically a lot of ethnic groups, and this is where all the ethnic groups live. As you can see in the Mekong Delta and in some parts of the Central Highlands, there's actually a lot of Cambodians, as well as Cham people, as level near Buôn Ma Thuột and Pleiku. And up in Hanoi, there's a lot of Thai Kadai people. And if you could see here, these are actually all the handicrafts, pottery, as well as some jewelry of the Kin Vietnamese ethnic group. And over here are some of the sculptures, pottery, and handicraft of the Khmer people, who are actually the Cambodians. And over here, I believe, is actually a ship. And here are some musical instruments. I'm now in the Buddha room, which depicts all the statues of Buddha. As you can see, I do believe these are Japanese and Korean Buddha statues. As you can see over here are actually Tibetan Buddha statues. Well, Buddhism is actually practiced throughout Asia, and these are Chinese Buddha statues over here, as you can see. And in China, Japan, and Korea, and Vietnam, they practice Mahayana Buddhism. And we were to go here, which includes Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. They basically include these Buddha statues, which kind of look different, as they practice the Theravada branch of Buddhism, as you can see. And here's one more statue, and out there I believe is a garden of some sort, as you can see. And yeah, just one more note, these are actually Vietnamese Buddha statues. I'm now in the history section of Vietnam, and as you can see, Vietnam is actually included in the list of countries with Stone Age relics according to this map. And this is actually the map of Vietnam, where the stone relics are actually located. And as you can see, some of these are actually some relics, include some rocks from the, I believe, the Paleolithic period, which was before the Ice Ages. And as you can see, then you were to go to the Neolithic period, which is actually after the Ice Ages, basically the beginning of civilization. These are actually Vietnamese hunter-gatherers, basically similar to other hunter-gatherers around the world. And as you can see, these are some samples from the Neolithic era. And if you were to go all the way here, you would actually find the independence era, essentially. As you can see, I don't know what these are, but according to the chart, these are actually drums, by the way. And over here are actually, I believe, these are actually some weapons and pottery. And these essentially show the pottery, as well as some of the artwork, as well as silverware, basically from the Bronze Age. Over here is in a much later era, as you can see, as this, I believe, is actually during the early medieval era. As you can see, this is one of, I think, Vietnam's emperors during the Dai Viet era. And this basically includes a grave of, I believe, somebody. Actually, it's a tomb, by the way. And this is actually a tombstone, basically for the grave. And this is actually a coffin, as well as this. Over here, it shows Vietnam during the war against the Song dynasty during the 11th century. As you can see, this is actually a statue of Buddha, Gautama Buddha. As you can see, they call him Anti-Taba Buddha. And over here, some stone carvings, as well as some pottery over here, and some more pottery. And if you were to go here, I do believe it's a more modern age, basically during Europe's Renaissance, I believe so. As you can see, the 14th and 15th century, which was the beginning of the Renaissance. And this is actually an example of a coin, as you can see. These are other examples of coins during the Tran dynasty. As you can see, basically the Tran dynasty, I believe, lasted from 1225 to 1400. As you can see, this is an example of pottery during the late medieval era in Vietnam. And as you can see, some of these, I believe, are weapons and silverware. And these are actually, you guessed it, miniature temples. What temples looked like at the time. And these are actually many of the artwork in Vietnam during the time. Luckily, as you can see, Vietnam did fight against Mongolia and they actually did win. Unlike Russia and Ukraine and Belarus, which are actually part of the Mongolian Empire during the 13th and 14th century. Over here is a room denoted to Cham ethnic group and a Cham culture. As you can see, guys, Cham is actually an Austronesian ethnic group, just like Malay, Filipino and Indonesian. And as you can see, even though Chams used to practice Buddhism, nowadays they practice Islam, just like the Malays and some Filipinos as well as Indonesians. And as you can see, this is what Cham art looks like. Some pottery as well as some sculptures and statues, as you can see, all the way to here. And many Chams were victims of Khmer Rouge genocide. Over here it depicts Oc El culture. I believe that's an ancient Vietnamese ethnic group. As you can see, guys, with some pottery and basically some artwork, sculptures. As you can see, this is, I believe, some piece of text, kind of like the Rosetta Stone. Because people used to write on stones rather than on paper, as you can see. These are what some artworks look like, kind of like many ancient Europeans and Egyptian ethnic groups, yeah, but in a different fashion. In this room, it depicts the art of the Khmer Empire as well as the Cambodians. As you can see, they've created a lot of stone and carvings, as well as, you guessed it, the Angkor Wat, which proves they have been a civilization for some time. And Angkor Wat in Siem Reap is one of the most visited tourist destinations in Cambodia, along with Phnom Penh. And as you can see, I'm currently in the room of the later Lê dynasty, as well as the dynasty, which means restorative, I believe so. As you can see, the later Lê dynasty just have some of these kings, as you can see, and this is one of the uprisings during the 15th century, the Lam Son uprising. And if you were to go here, it includes some of the artwork, the potteries, just like before. As you can see, this is what the potteries look like during this era, much more developed. Just like today. And as you can see, this is actually, I believe, a statue of one of the Buddhas. This statue is actually called the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara with 1,000 eyes and 1,000 hands. I'm sorry if I butchered the pronunciation. I did try my best. As you can see, these are some of the vases during the Restoration dynasty, which are much more modern. And you see these vases in many Vietnamese houses to this day. And these are actually some coins, as you can see, during the time. And if you were to go all the way here, it does include the Thai Son dynasty, which was founded in 1778 by a guy named Nguyen Ngoc. And Nguyen Huê was actually crowned the king of the Thai Son dynasty until he founded the Nguyen dynasty in 1802, which is a more modern dynasty. And if you were to go into this room, you will actually see the Nguyen dynasty, which is actually the modern dynasty, which lasted, I believe, until 1945. Basically, my grandparents were already adults by 1945. As you can see more modern people here, basically with black and white photographs, unlike the stone carvings anymore. I'm now in the Nguyen dynasty, which is the very last dynasty, basically the dynasty of French colonialism. Instead of being colonized or even at war with other Asian countries anymore, now Europeans started to invade Vietnam. As you can see, Bao Dai is actually the last king of Vietnam before Vietnam became a communist republic and then went into war and then basically became communist the entire country. As you can see, Nguyen Phuc An is actually the first emperor of the Nguyen dynasty. I was wrong, but Nguyen Huê I thought was the first though. And as you can see here, this is actually a typical temple. This is actually a paradigm of the Meridian Gate. And as you can see, this is some info of the founding, I believe, of the Communist Party of Vietnam, with Ho Chi Minh declaring independence in 1945, just after World War II ended. And as you can see, these are some weapons of the Nguyen dynasty, and these are some significant people. If you were to go here, I do believe this is a bed, but I'm not sure. It is actually a dragon bed, by the way. And many of my relatives do own beds like this. It's really hard to sleep, even with the bed in Thu Dau Mot at Happy One, where it has a hard mattress. It's already hard to sleep, let alone this. I cannot believe people could sleep on these. I'm not really sure of how to sleep. And these are some ceramics of the Nguyen dynasty, as well as bronzeware as well. And these are actually some wooden furniture. Many of my relatives do own wooden furniture because many of my uncles and aunts were born at the very end of the Nguyen dynasty during the early to mid 40s, some of the really oldest ones. And this is actually what the royals actually wear. Yes, kind of like European royals, but in a different taste. And I do believe this is an altar of some kind, because many of my relatives do own altars. And as you can see, this is actually a futoir, which is a hat with wings. Some more ceramics, actually Chinese porcelain. And this is the manual of the Nguyen dynasty. And these are some more antiquities, as well as coins, as you can see. After touring around nearly the entire museum, except the fact that some rooms actually were closed due to construction, I'm actually going to leave the museum and go to the Ngoc temple. Now this museum does showcase Vietnamese artifacts from the prehistoric period all the way to the Nguyen dynasty. It was actually inaugurated in 1929, and the zoo over there was built in the 1860s, making it one of the oldest zoos in the world. It was basically built by colonialists, so why not? I'm actually go to the temple. As you can see, I just arrived at the Phuoc Hai temple, as you can see, which is, I believe, another name for the Ngoc Hoang temple. I'm sorry if I butcher all the pronunciations. I try my best. As you can see, these are some of the opening hours. And right now I'm actually going to go into the temple to see what it's like. This temple was built in 1909 to honor the Taoist God of Heaven, aka the Jade Emperor. And as you can see, this is one of the statues. I'm not sure what it is, but it was funded by a Cantonese migrant named Liu Dao Yuan. And as mentioned earlier, there are actually two names of the temple, and Barack Obama did take a state trip to Vietnam just months before Donald Trump got elected as president. He actually went to this temple, by the way, which is crazy. As you can see, this is what the temple looks like. I'm actually going to take you guys around a tour with all the nice flowers and trees and stuff. And this is where you actually honor the Jade Emperor. As you guys can see from the sign, unfortunately I cannot film or take pictures, so I'm not able to show you guys the inside of this, but this is what the outside looks like. Now, due to the fact it has been 5 hours since I ate, and since I walked so much, I'm very hungry, and I decided to eat McDonald's, not only because I'm hungry, but because I wanted to try what McDonald's is like in Vietnam. And then at around 7:30 or 8 o'clock, I'm actually going to eat my real dinner. So right now I'm going to eat my snack and then head out to the outskirts. After eating a small McDonald's snack, my taxi driver finally arrived, and it is actually a Toyota Vios. As you can see, this is what the taxi car looks like. After a 25-minute taxi ride, I just arrived at Giac Lam Temple. As you can see, it was built in 1744 by Li Thuy Long, who is a resident of Minh Huong, by the way. And this is one of the oldest temples of Ho Chi Minh City. It actually does include a Bodhi tree, as well as, you guessed it, a 7-story stupa. As you can see, I do believe this is a stupa, but I'm not sure if it's the correct stupa. But why not? Let's go in. There are lots of dogs in here that are actually unleashed, but from what I hear, they're quite friendly around Ho Chi Minh City, unlike in Thu Dau Mot, of which they're more aggressive. As you can see, this stupa, as I believe so, is actually 7 stories. So let me count for more confirmation if it's actually 7 or not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, this is the 7-story stupa. One I'm actually going to enter and see what it is. Now here is the stupa with the statue of Kwan Am on the front. As you can see, Bo Tap Saloi, I don't even know what it means, but why not, let's enter. Construction of this stupa actually started in 1970, but then halted in 1975 because of the fall of Saigon, and construction actually resumed during the mid-90s and finished by the mid-90s. As you can see, this is what the stupa looks like, and right now I'm actually going to go in. I'm not sure if shoes are allowed. Here I've not seen anybody place the shoes anywhere, and all these signs are in Vietnamese, as you can see, so it's not easy to understand. But right now I'm actually going to go in and see what it's like. As you can see, there is actually a Buddhist monk in there. And as you can see, there are actually some statues of several Buddhas here. And this guy is actually the Fat Buddha, as you can see. That's what people call it, and this is what the inside looks like. You could actually pray over there as well as over here as well. I don't know if I'm allowed to use the stairs to go up. I don't think so, so why not, I'm actually going to go somewhere else. As you can see, the temple is quite big, just like the temple of 2 days ago. But the temple of 2 days ago is actually magnificent compared to this one, which is just kind of a regular temple in Ho Chi Minh City. As you can see, next to sort of a ugly neighborhood, not as beautiful as many European cities I visited, but probably about as good as many outskirts of certain poor European countries, like those in Greece, and Serbia. Over here near the entrance, as you can see, this is actually the entrance. There's actually another place you could actually pray to Buddha. As you can see at this text, I think let's pray to the anti-Baba Buddha. I'll put it down in the subtitles. And I do apologize, all the signs are actually in Vietnamese, so for you English viewers, you might not be able to understand what any of these mean, unfortunately. I'm now in the section of the temple which includes graves for dead people. As you can see, these people have died many years ago. I'm not sure when, but it does include some dead people, kind of like in the Czech Republic where they have a lot of dead people in the Vyšehrad. It does include a lot of graves, yeah, from like I don't even know, the 18th, 19th century, maybe 20th century, who knows. But these people have died like really long ago, as you can see. But I'm not sure if these are really graves or tombs or anything, I'm not sure. If you were to go a bit further, this is actually a bigger statue of Buddha. And here are some trees as well to actually help cover Buddha, as you can see, along with this tree. I'm currently in the last room of the temple, as you can see, basically at the very north end. And as you can see, it shows some dead people, people who have died over the years. As you can see, these people have actually died quite early. I do believe so, born in the late 50s, yeah. But these people have also died as well. And same with these people. So there's a lot of dead people in here, as you can see. In this room you could actually pray to more dead people, as you can see the pictures of all the dead people, as well as you do have a statue of Ho Chi Minh, as you can see. This is actually Ho Chi Minh. And over here is another statue of Buddha, so you can see the theme here. It is actually a Buddhist temple. Now actually going to go out of this building and search for the body tree before actually getting out of this temple altogether. As you can see, even more dead people. It's quite insane here. As you can see, I do believe this is the Bodhi tree, and this is actually Fat Buddha, as you can see. And this was the building I was at before I left. And as you can see, this is another one of the towers in the Buddhist temple. And I'm not sure what this is, but I'll see what it is. And you guessed it, a statue of Buddha over here. I'm going to leave the temple, take a grab, and then return to the hotel and get some more water. As you can see, yes, you might not see the footage where it was chased by dogs. That's because I did not shoot the footage. But yes, I was chased by dogs. I was really paranoid that the dog might bite. But in reality, the temple did say that dogs do not bite. Yes, I was just extremely paranoid because I do have an irrational fear of dogs. As you can see, that was the Grab I actually ridden, the Mitsubishi Expander, as you can see, which kind of looks like the Toyota Innova as well as the Nissan Grand Vitara. Sorry, what I meant was the Grand Levina. I'm now on my way to the Bitexco Financial Tower to actually see the skyline of Ho Chi Minh City via the sky deck. And as you can see, this is actually the City Hall at night. And over there is actually the Nguyen Hue Music Fountain, as well as the statue of Ho Chi Minh, as you can see. Now I'm actually going to walk to the Bitexco Financial Tower to actually show you guys the sky view of Ho Chi Minh City, even though I feel like it's a bit overrated and it's expensive, just like the Fürstentum in Berlin, of which I actually avoided going up and instead chose to actually go up the Berlin Cathedral. As you can see, guys, I'm actually on my way to the financial center, and as you can see, there's actually a night concert. I'm sorry if it's so loud. I'm trying to speak as loud as I can, and as you can see, it is really loud. The concert is going on here. As you can see over here, guys, this is actually the Saigon sky deck. As you can see, it's really tall. It is not the tallest in Ho Chi Minh City, but tall enough for you guys to see the sky view of Ho Chi Minh City. So why not, I'm just going to get some tickets and maybe even enter. I'm finally on the Saigon sky deck, and as you can see, this building does reach a height of 861 feet, and it is the 4th tallest building in all of Vietnam. It was the tallest building in all of Vietnam between 2010 and 2011, but nowadays this building, which is landmark 81, is the tallest building and has been since 2018. Construction was started in 2005, and as you can see, the sky deck is actually the Bitexco Tower, and as you can see, this is the skyline of the new city of Ho Chi Minh City. It's absolutely stunning, as always, just like New York City. And for more information, the Saigon sky deck is amongst the most iconic buildings in the world, as rated by CNN. And as you can see, this is actually the history of Saigon, from when it was founded to when Vietnam was unified, to basically the Vietnam War and stuff, and of course the fall of Saigon, and then the start of communism as the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. And as you can see, this is what Saigon looks like over the years, all the way to today when the building was built. And as you can see, it's absolutely stunning up here, but a bit expensive. It's about $10. And you also have, you guessed it, the Vietnamese dress museum, sort of showcasing all the Vietnamese dresses. As you can see, the Vietnamese traditional dress actually started out like this around the 17th, 18th and 19th century, which is quite basic, all the way to here when colonialism took place, which actually made the dress a bit more westernized, as you can see. And it basically maintained its beauty status throughout all of Vietnam, as you can see, all the way to today, when it looked more like this. On this poster, it does depict the construction as well as some of the features of the Bitexco Financial Tower. As you can see, one of the features is that there's actually a helipad, but I could not show you guys a helipad. I'm not sure where it is, but I could if I knew where it is. So I'm gonna find out. And this is the inauguration on Halloween of 2010, which was superseded by Landmark 72 in Hanoi just about 2 months later. As you can see, this is what the sky deck looks like. And this used to be the tallest building in all of Ho Chi Minh City for 8 years until it was superseded by this building, Landmark 81, as you can see, which is the tallest building in Vietnam and the 17th tallest in the whole world, which is crazy given the city's like rapid development. I remember during like the 1990s and 2000s and of course 80s, when Vietnam used to be really poor and people used to ride these every day, but now it's a very rapidly developing country. However, not really evenly developed, as I still see some poverty in rural areas, and even in Ho Chi Minh City, it's not as clean as like Europe or the US or parts of East Asia. Here are actually more scenery. As you can see, guys, it's absolutely stunning from all the way up here. And let me show you guys, this is the City Hall of Ho Chi Minh City. And over here, I believe, is the Nguyen Hue Music Fountain. And over here, some more roads. I'm not sure where the Independence Palace is. It's quite dark outside. And the Independence Palace is covered with trees. But as you can see, it's absolutely stunning. But the Independence Palace should be around there. And you can actually use binoculars, but it does cost some money, and I'm not willing to use binoculars. But as you can see, it's absolutely a stunning night view, and I'm definitely going to go to Burj Khalifa, even if Burj Khalifa is overpriced. That's because Burj Khalifa has one special trait. It is the tallest building in the world. I'm not sure if it's superseded by anything in Saudi Arabia, but it is the tallest building in the world currently. And basically, I think it's absolutely worth the money to go to Burj Khalifa because of Dubai's like skyscape. Over here are some of the 20 most iconic buildings of the world, with the Empire State Building being the most iconic. I've definitely been up there before. It's quite expensive. And you also have this building, which is quite iconic, and this building as well. And some of these other buildings, Petronet Twin Towers, and the Kingdom Center, I definitely do know in Saudi Arabia. And of course, Bitexco is actually number 5th in most iconic. I'm so curious where the Burj Khalifa is. 18th most iconic. It is basically the tallest building. I do think it's absolutely worth visiting, even if it's way too overpriced and too overrated. And of course, I do know a lot of these buildings, even though I don't know all of them. I've now finished my tour at the Saigon Sky Deck, and as you can see, this is where I'm actually eating. I am actually eating the vermicelli, which costs 75,000 VND. It is actually, I believe, I'll show you guys what I mean here. This is actually what I'm eating here, and I'm actually going to enjoy the meal. It looks very, very appetizing, and I'll see you guys when I'm at the hotel. After eating dinner, I'm now back at the hotel. It's been a long day today. I'm quite tired. I'm actually going to sleep now. Ho Chi Minh City has been a really great city, even though there's some problems such as motorcyclists not borrowing to pedestrians and also some infrastructure issues. I do think it's a quite great city to visit. Cheap food, cheap hotels, very nice people. In fact, even a luxury restaurant is still very affordable, like $20 for a really nice meal at the Hokkaido Sushi. Basically, even less than $20 actually. In the US, that same meal would be like maybe at least $20, $25 or something. But in reality, I got quite a good meal for quite a good price. And it has been a great trip in Ho Chi Minh City. Tomorrow I'm actually going to go to Hanoi. It's quite a busy day, of course. And a busy several days, and it's full of wonderful people, wonderful food, and even a lot of things to do as well. So thank you guys for watching. Please give a big thumbs up, subscribe for more videos. I really apologize if the video is long and if I was stuttering and stuff, but I do try my real best. And yeah, there you go guys. I'll see you guys later.